NFL Sunday Ticket and get up to 200 regular season games. Rogers Xfinity TV customers say NFL Sunday Ticket into your voice remote.
You're watching Rogers TV.
Was that 4 or 5? He's lost count and still thinks he can drive. Do you think he knows that when he is caught and charged with impaired driving, he'll lose his license and a lot more? If he gets in his car, he'll face costs exceeding $20,000. Does he realize he could have a criminal record for his choice to drive? And it could be much worse if he crashes. Wonder what he'll be thinking tomorrow.
Have a Holden one at 15.
Visit ArriveAlive.org to find out more. Arrive Alive. Drive sober.
You're watching Rogers TV.
Hey guys, we're with you here now. Dustin here, joined by Kevin Young right to my right side. We're going to be bringing him in for some commentary. We are watching a few ridings in particular over here this evening. Humber Grossmorn, Cornerbrook, St. George's Humber, Stephenville, and of course Humber Bay of Islands. We are going to be here delivering to you the results, weighing in, a bit of commentary. So stay tuned tonight to this program, and we can't wait to see who is going to be the new leader of this most amazing province. But for now, it's right back to Gander.
Hi, it's great to be here tonight. I certainly appreciate the opportunity to be with you. This is a very exciting night for me. I have so many friends and colleagues who are running in districts all over this province, former mayors, councillors, members of the board of municipalities, Newfoundland and Labrador, who are running. It's been a different year. With the provincial and the municipal elections overlapping and nominations falling around the same time as the provincial nominations, it kind of knocked a few people out of the municipal running because they made the choice to run provincially. So it's going to be interesting to see how they fare tonight. I'm really interested not just in the two districts here in Grand Falls, Windsor, Buckens, and Exploits, which is my area, but to watch the rest of the province as well.
Good evening, Newfoundland and Labrador. I'm your host, Lori Lydia Lovelace, and of course, we are here for the provincial election results right here in the studio in St. John's, Newfoundland. And of course, we're going to be giving you live updates. We're having great discussions and giving you all the real-time results with my co-host, John Harris. So, John, welcome.
It's great to be here, Lydia.
It's going to be an awesome night. And we're so excited here in the office. So you know what? We're going to head back down to Gander.
Those are our hosts for tonight, and hopefully it will be like a giant match of ping pong through the whole evening. Looking at some of the feedback that we're getting. A lot of municipal leaders have made the jump to provincial politics.
Okay, go back to St. John's while we clear up this audio issue. So let's start, or we're just hearing that maybe it's sorted. So let's carry on.
Shall we continue?
Carry on.
Yes. Live TV. You never know what's going to happen. Looking at the municipal leaders that have made the jump to provincial politics, you've got some prominent people like Dan Bobbitt from Paradise, Bettina Ford, Deputy Mayor of Gander, right here running against Tom Healy, Tina Neary in Portugal Cove St. Phillips, of course Charles Pender against Jim Parsons in Corner Brook, the battle of the former mayor against the current mayor, and that's going to be quite the battle to watch. Mike Guzny in Deer Lake, Barry Manuel, the current mayor of Grand Falls, Windsor, up against Chris Tibbs, Brian Keating, no stranger to the television media on the Barron Peninsula, Sheila O'Leary, and so many others that are
no names, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So clearly going to be an exciting night. Let's go back to St. John's and dig in more from Laura Lydia.
Welcome back to St. John's, and it's an exciting night all across the province, of course, for the provincial election results. But I want to take a moment to introduce you to John Harris, my co-host for this evening. And John, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I'm the chief of the Muse, which is Memorial University's student newspaper. I'm really glad to be here. I mean, it's such an incredible election. There's so much going on. I'm currently an education student at Memorial University, and I definitely care about the future of this province. And I think that's what this election has been about. It's been about, where are we going from here? What are people's immediate needs? But also, what is our plan and where are we going? So I think that it's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out. Definitely, the results are rolling in, and I'm super excited to get into it all.
Yeah, and that's it. We're seeing results coming right across the table already, which is great to see. And tonight we're going to see the shape that's going to be happening for our province. And I'm so excited to see how things are going to go and what we can expect for this year. And so what's your thoughts?
Well, I think when we look at it, we have, 3 leaders that have been untested at the electorate level. We have Jim Dinn, who has been the leader the longest in 2021 after Alison Coffin, who we'll get back to in a bit, but is rejoining the race. So he's been NDP leader since 2021 as interim leader, and then 2023 he was acclaimed as leader of the Provincial New Democratic Party. And then if we look at next up on the list will be Tony Wakeham, who's been leader since 2023 after beating Eugene Manning in a leadership contest. And so we're yet to see how he's gonna come out. And John Hogan, of course,
after Fury,
is the brand new premier, brand new Liberal leader. So it's very much unknown kind of how these leadership will be faced when it comes to the electorate. And
then of course the independents, of course.
Yes, and there's some significant independent running this year.
We have Alison Coffin, who's running, in 2 ridings, 2 districts this year, which is quite interesting to see.
Yeah, I mean, after Alison Coffin was the leader of the NDP and was defeated by John Abbott in St. John's East Kitty-Vitty, which he then resigned after a court case that was going to potentially challenge the results of that 2021 COVID election. So when you look at now, Alison Coffin is not running for the NDP, but as an independent. And the special thing, of course, is that she's not just running in 1 district, but 2.
Yes.
So that's definitely something to watch. She's running in both Carbonear, Trinity Bay de Verde, and also in Harbour Grace, Portagrave.
Absolutely.
So that's going to be interesting. Obviously, Paul Lane is a stalwart of Mount Pearl.
Absolutely.
And is being challenged by Sarah Furlong, mental health advocate.
Yeah.
We also have, in that district, we have Brian Robbins running for the PCs and Brenda Walsh for the NDP. And Eddie Joyce is also running again for Humber Bay of Islands, which is significant as an independent incumbent. A young challenger in Megan Parsons, who's running for the Liberals.
Yes.
And also Ethan Wheeler Park for the PCs. And Colin Glavac for the NDP. So definitely want to watch how those independents play into the overall results.
Absolutely.
Obviously, we're looking at 21 seats for a majority, and we'll see if which party, if any, will get that.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a tight race, and I'm just excited to see, we're seeing some results coming in right away, which is really great to see. A lot of people have been out voting today, seeing all the social media aspects of that. And, it's been, I think it's going to be a really great, run, and to see what some of the promises that we'll discuss a little bit later, of course. And so I think right now we're going to just head it back to Gander right now.
Great insights.
Great insights. And, there's a lot on the table in this election, too. I mean, first and foremost, we got to look at, again, from the leadership level, the whole stance on the memorandum of understanding on Churchill Falls, Gull Island, and all that development.
How they will proceed with it,
And made this election very much a provincial scope type thing. Do you want to proceed the direction of one versus the direction of the other? This, in some ways, will be somewhat of a referendum in terms of the direction you move forward on that. A lot of money at stake, a lot of years of a deal that, could reshape Newfoundland and so on. And of course, into the debate and so on that you and I hosted, it was only a week or so ago, healthcare, lack of family doctors, collaborative care clinics, family care teams,
travel nurses,
the amount of money on each,
and a lot of promises from both parties.
A lot of promises from both.
Yeah.
Of course, promises are a big part of this. It sort of shows your platform for moving forward, and of course the whole cost of living thing. The cost of things rising. Where do we go, and what are your solutions? What do you say to the person who can't afford a spot to live?
All right, well, let's go back over to Amy in Grand Falls and check in with her.
Hey, Thanks again. Some results coming in. It's really interesting to watch. You see some with early leads and some are so close. It's going to be really interesting tonight. It'll be interesting to see how quickly all these results come in. It could be a pretty late night, but we'll see how it goes. So I guess some of the things that we've been working on and looking into from a municipalities Newfoundland and Labrador standpoint has certainly been, working with the leaders of each party and talking to them about the needs of municipalities, talking to them about the concerns that municipalities have, the struggles that we're facing. We did reach out to each of the provincial party leaders, sent them letters with specific questions asking, what their plans were when it comes to infrastructure needs, drinking water and wastewater, public safety, community safety, of course, healthcare, all the things that are important to municipalities across this province. So it's going to be interesting to see now how each party, which party is successful tonight and how do we move forward with those relationships, because having a relationship with all party, is such an important piece of the work that we do.
Amy Cody in Grand Falls, Windsor, and she's right. There's a lot of things right now on the table, and these things all have prices on them. So, now we're going to be heading into a budget, balancing these things, looking at what was promised and delivering on these. Of course, one of the big things here in Gander was the whole concept of firefighting, namely forest firefighting. We saw all too well this past summer what a toll that can take. And the need for infrastructure, fixing that fifth water bomber that's currently down, bird dog acquisitions, we learned a whole lot of new words. Well, I did anyway this past summer. The super scooper helicopter that's so badly needed. If we get another wildfire season next year, please God, no, we don't. But very much a thing, very much a possibility coming into next year as we get into fire season as well. Certainly I covered when Premier Hogan was here, and we look at the cost of this stuff, but yet the need. You just can't let things burn. You've got to get at them as soon as possible. Every bit of hardware
But
will count.
I mean, in some ways that applies to a lot of these big issues. Like when you think about healthcare and you think about education and public safety, I think that's been the big debate is we need some investment in some of these issues, but where does the money come from? And that's where it kind of comes back to obviously just budgeting, but also the Churchill Falls MOU and what's the future for Newfoundland and Labrador.
It's going to be a fun few weeks / months / years ahead of us. But for right now, I think we are ready to head back to Corner Brook, and let's see if we have any updates from over there.
Yes, we are back, and it looks like we do have some updates, guys. This is going to be maybe one of the most exciting, dramatic elections in my lifetime, at least, that I remember. Right here in Corner Brook, of course, we have the Battle of the Mayors, but even in Stephenville, Kevin, now, of course, Tony Wakeham's riding. I think we've got news coming in there as well.
Yeah, so Tony Wakeham, leader of the PC party, looks like he secured his seat at just over 71% of the vote. So congratulations to Tony. It looks like he beat out the two other candidates there from the Liberal and NDP party. So that was Jeff Young in the Liberal Party. I know he ran a great campaign.
He did, yeah.
Great young man. I look forward to seeing him in the future as well, because he's been very involved with the Halibu as well.
Yeah, he's been on our show in the past promoting all kinds of programs, worked for College North Atlantic in the past as well, so I agree. He definitely ran a great one.
It's really rough when you're going against somebody who is the leader of a party in that riding. So, good on you, Jeff, for stepping up, and other candidates as well in that area. But congratulations to Tony.
Yeah, congrats, Tony. And now, listen, I just want to touch on Burgeo and Lapoil on the South Coast a little bit. I know you've got a connection there, actually, to one of the candidates also running, making their first entrance into politics.
Yeah, my sister-in-law, Victoria Young, she's running under the PC party, and she's running out in Burgeo-Lapoil. And right now, it's going towards the Michael King.
That's been like a strong Liberal riding for a long time, right? That's going to be a tricky one for her to
Andrew
flip.
Parsons, who just stepped down from politics, actually was the MHA for that area. He was a minister, of course. In the last election, he won by 83%. So I think she knew going into Virgil Lepold it was going to be an uphill battle. But she's been doing great, and I'm proud of her. And wait and see what happens. The night's not over yet. Absolutely,
it's not over. Anything really could happen. And I think even from the leading numbers that we have here right now, as we're seeing on the bottom, 21 seats Liberal, 15 PC. I think it can still definitely go in either direction. Here in Corner Brook, it's probably one of the most exciting and unwatched ridings here on the island. We have, as mentioned in Gander, the Battle of the Mayors, where most likely Jim Parsons or Charles Pender, who have both served on council together, one of them is going to be our MHA, but, statistically. Now, I think it's pretty common knowledge that in council chambers, maybe Jim and Charles have butted heads a little bit in the past. They're both very passionate. They're both have contributed significantly to this city over the years. But they definitely share different philosophies, right? So how do you think this is going to play out, Kevin?
They definitely share different philosophies, but I think what I like about both of those gentlemen is that, as you mentioned, their passion. They do love Corner Brook.
Yeah.
They both do. They may have different views, they may have different ideas of what they think is best, but their heart is there.
Yeah.
So for the people of Corner Brook, whoever wins, whether that's Jim, whether that's Charles, which seem to be the two leading candidates right now, you're going to get somebody who loves this city, who loves this area, and who's going to do the best that they can with that. So either way, we're looking forward to it. I'm not going to say who I think is going to win because I think it's early to call that, but I do think that, I think we're about to see it here in just a moment. There it is. So what we're looking at right now, Jim Parsons is currently in the lead, and we'll see what happens there. But excited. I'm excited for these results.
I think there's reason to believe that some of these Liberal strongholds might change in this election, right? And I think the federal election was our first glimpse. Right up until Election Day, even the polls, which we should talk about a little bit later, Newfoundland's polling, or lack thereof, even the Liberals were a fair bit ahead in the polls leading up to Election Day, and of course the Conservatives ended up winning by a pretty good margin.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised if we see that. And I think Deer Lake is probably, and Humber Gross Morensor, where we have Mike Guzny running against Helen Reid and Rebecca Brushett.
Yeah. So Mike Guzny, of course, the former mayor.
Right. Former mayor, outgoing mayor, I think fairly well supported in the community. So I wouldn't be too surprised about that one. Again, we're not here to make predictions, are we, Kevin?
No,
but
not at all.
I do think that we're going to see some red riding string blue here. But I wouldn't be surprised if Corner Brook remains the same color.
I will say this, I'm excited. We talked a little bit about this before it came back to us about independents running. And if we look at the results right now, we're seeing that we've got two independents that are currently...
One of them is here.
And one of them right here, and Humber... my goodness, Humber Bay Bonds. There we go. Humber Bay Bonds, Eddie Joyce. And no surprise there.
Yeah, well, I think we've got to throw it back, but I can't wait to now turn my focus into these numbers and find out who our representatives are going to be. So we will be joining you back from Corner Brook with more updates, but for right now, it's back to our friends in Gander.
Thanks, Dustin. So just off the top, just a reminder that, as you can see, the party results just running across the bottom. And as John Harris mentioned earlier, it's 21 seats would be a majority in the House of Assembly. So that's kind of what we're watching for to see which party comes up. Right now, the Liberals, of course, ahead with 21, but still early as we have polls coming in. And on the side, we're just flipping through the 40 districts.
And of course, as we all know in politics, anything can change. We're in some of the, I guess we see right here on the screen, we're not even halfway through the numbers yet. But, trends are trends, but some of those trends are very, very close, and recounts are a real possibility in this sort of thing. Neat thing about this election, though, and over the last, I guess, 6 months, we've lost a number of names off ballots that were, I guess, the veterans of the political landscape.
Like a changeover with the Liberals.
Yeah, have decided, they've taken their retirement. Some of them have many, many terms in. Of course, these include people like Perry Shrimper and like Melville. Siobhan Cody, finance minister, have just opted not to run. Steve Crocker from back in the day in tourism and so on. Scott Reed from Humber St. George's. John Hagee, the health minister during COVID. If you're going to write a book, that's probably what the title will be. But John was the health minister during the 4 years of COVID, and let me tell you, not an enviable job at all. He has also decided not to run. Jerry Byrne, I can't remember a time when Jerry Byrne wasn't in politics, from over in Corner Brook. John Abbott in St. John's. Derek Bragg, who unfortunately passed away last year. Tom Osborne, again, made the transition, but again, you know, a major player in the scene. Andrew Fury, you know, your premier, not running. Dave Brazel, of course, who stepped down a little while ago. Andrew Parsons, certainly a political heavyweight, to say the least, and around for a long, long time with some heavy portfolios. And of course, Jordan Brown, who now is a mayor back in his home in Labrador. So, you know, these are the people that you know would have, I dare say, a leg up in an election, but have opted to keep their names off the ballot this time.
And I think it just shows that there's a lot of new names that we're seeing tonight that are going to win seats. So regardless of which party wins, definitely a change of who's representing us in the House
Right
of
now,
Assembly.
the Liberals seem to have gained one. So like a 22 for the Liberals. Now these are leading. Nobody declared or anything yet. This is 22 leading seats for the Liberals, 14 for the PCs, 2 for the NDP, 2 for the Independents.
Yeah.
And
so, of course, a seat we're watching closely is the one in Gander. So right now it looks like Bettina Ford is quite a bit ahead of the Progressive Conservative candidate Tom Healy. So, and interesting when you look at the ridings and the districts across the province, this was one that both really, you know, really strong candidates, but kept it very friendly.
They did keep it extremely friendly. I know when you and I hosted a debate there a week and a half ago, very cordial. The debate went, you know, express your interests on the points.
For sure.
Stand your ground. But
so much respect for each other, and
Yep.
I think you felt that in the community, that with two kind of respected community leaders running, people were a little torn of like you felt like you couldn't lose. I think in some ways, right?
Both very, very well known here in Gander and the surrounding area. Two very respected people. I mean, Bettina, your deputy mayor, former councillor, second time elected and went right to the post of deputy mayor. Of course, Tom involved in so many things, air traffic controller.
Yeah, well-known guy.
And very well-known guy here in town. As a matter of fact, talk about being cordial, I think they filed their papers at the same time. I'm not sure if they carpooled or not, but, a very respectful, but, stand your ground type of debate. Very enjoyable. And of course, Justin Foley, who was with the NDP in this district as well. But right now, it looks from the last numbers, Bettina is holding a fairly sizable lead over Tom Healy right now.
But as we watch these numbers come in, there's clearly some districts that are very close.
And we've just seen a flip-flop again.
Yeah.
We're back down to 21 for the Liberals.
Yeah, there's a few seats that are going to go back and forth, I think.
Fred Hutton doing a respectable showing. Of course, Fred, knew when David Brazel stepped down in that riding. Barry Petton as well. Somewhere 300 plus votes over Ken McDonald. Of course, Ken with a federal background and so on. And there we have the Corner Brook one, 300 votes in the difference between Jim Parsons and Charles Bender.
Brian, do you think there was voter fatigue after the municipal? I felt it a bit.
There can't not be. And two factors came at play here. One, of course, this is the second election in 12 days, the third one in a little over 4 months. It's to be expected. We talked about this when we looked at the 3 elections and when the timeline approached, how close they would get together. Also, another factor that played into things, of course, in the lack of mail-out things or postal strike.
That voter card that tells you
voter
the day
card that was like a roadmap to cast your X wasn't there, and if you weren't tech savvy, some people aren't.
Well, you mentioned having to show your, help your parents navigate.
I actually had to make a phone call, So you're welcome, Mom. You're welcome, Dad. And we, we found where they voted, and they in turn voted today. So it's something everybody needs to do. You should not vote You know, it's a thing. So and now I think we are ready to head back to
Lori Lydia.
Lori Lydia.
Welcome back to St. John's. And of course, we're seeing so many great things happening, you know, and lots of results coming through. But I think, John, you and I are going to have some talk about now the key promises and positions by the major parties. So, of course, you know, the main thing that we're seeing a lot, especially from the Liberal side, is the Churchill Falls project and the MOU, of course, that they are, you know, advocating for. So, you know, they're pushing the MOU so that, you know, Quebec can replace the old Upper Churchill project and, you know, build Gull Island and expand Churchill Falls. But we're not seeing that always in, you know, with other parties. So, you know, NDP and PC have differing opinions on that. So what's your take on that?
I think it's really interesting that the Liberal Party tried to make this election all about the MOU.
Yep.
I think, you know, when you look back and it was Andrew Furey's kind of last thing he did as Premier before he kind of left on pretty short notice, which I was definitely surprised at the time.
Absolutely.
I really don't. I guess he wanted to spend more time with his family. But the idea that the MOU would be the only thing important in this debate just seemed a little bit, you know, it was already passed through the House of Assembly. Mm-hmm. They already had they already had their experts, which were all the people behind the deal, come forward and give their testimony. I think at the time the PCs walked away from that vote. The NDP did vote for it under the idea that there'll be an independent review. Yeah. The PCs have said that they don't believe that this independent review is adequate enough. We've seen Mike Wilson walk away from the review, and the PCs are criticizing the project, and they want to put it to a referendum, which I think is an interesting vote idea. But I think what the Liberals see this election as a referendum on the MOU. So I do think that when it comes to a lot at the provincial election debate, everything came back to the MOU.
Absolutely.
How do you want to do that if you weren't going to get the $1 billion a year from the MOU? How would you want to do this if you're not agreeing to this deal? So I think that when it comes down to it, Liberals really wanted to make this election about the MOU.
Sure. Even when we asked about the economy, when it came to jobs, stabilities, and affordability, everything came back to the MOU project, and that seems to be a trend for the Liberals. You know? Yeah.
For the PCs, if we were going to say what they wanted to define the election as, they were giving a campaign of change.
Yes.
They were, they're looking at the cost of living crisis, and they want to help with that and try and get people on their side by saying we're going to lower taxes and we're going to fix the healthcare crisis as well.
Bring some MRI machines and help with that aspect of it as well.
Yeah, and I think they're hoping to cash in on the 10 years of Liberals. Maybe they think people are kind of fatigued and maybe asking themselves, is my life better than it was before? And is there going to be that real appetite for change? I think so far when we look at the election results, it's pretty similar to what we were the election going into it. We are seeing a slight PC gain, I believe, in terms of, or I think it might just be right on the nose in terms of what we had, in terms of who's leading right now.
Absolutely.
The NDP, they came to it, they often criticize for the common refrain, how are we going to pay for it?
Yes.
But they came prepared, so they released the costed platform pretty early on.
Very early on in comparison, and they had this 4-year budget, balance more or less, and that's what we haven't seen from the other parties.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting, the contrast that they had their platform costed, where that means they put in, how much everything's going to cost, this is how we're going to pay for it, whereas the Liberals and PCs both released their platforms shortly before the provincial debate, which made it a little bit harder for people to pin them down on things, leading up to the election. So coming into it, Jim Dinh and the NDP, I think want to say, hey, we're an alternative. We are responsible. We can be a government. Whether or not that translates is yet to be decided. They're leading in 2 races right now, and it's a little closer than maybe people had expected. Yeah. But Sheila O'Leary is leading in St. John's East Kitty-Vity, and Jim Dinn is leading in St. John's Centre. So we have a rematch with Gemma Hickey, who's running for the Liberal Party. And I also, in Sheila O'Leary's district, we have John Whalen, who is, would be continuing the Liberal hold that on St. John's East Kitty-Vity, which is interesting. We also have Laura Bell Mba, Rogers TV very own, and she's the first Black person to ever run for provincial politics here in the province, which is quite significant. Another first in Labrador West, there is Shazia Razi, who is the first woman, Muslim woman, and first woman to wear a hijab to run for election here in the province. So there's definitely a lot of firsts for this campaign.
Absolutely. And speaking about, Rogers TV alumni, there's Laura Bell, of course, that's running. And we also have Justin Foley, who's also been a longtime volunteer here as well. And he's in Gander running for NDP. So, we're seeing a lot of new faces and new things that we're seeing that way as well. So one thing I do want to ask you, because you are a MUN student, and seeing the rise of post-secondary, and that's a big factor into this election. So tell us what you would like to see in regards to that.
Well, MUN Students Union, which I was actually a part of for 2 years before I became the editor-in-chief of the Muse, they hosted a Day of Action rally. And their hope was, we want to do what was done in 1999 during the election year of Brian Tobin, in the start of the tuition freeze in 2000. It's election year again in 2025. They'd hoped that this would be a big election issue. And it was raised, I think, the profile, because it is an election year, the profile of the student movement was raised, and the protest that went to House of Assembly, they were asking for paid work terms for nursing, pharmacy, education. I'm an education student, as well as social work students. I think they're also looking for a repeal of the tuition increase at MUN, which saw the tuition skyrocket from $3,000 to $6,000 a year for domestic students, and from $12,000 to $20,000 for international students. So that was definitely a big ask. I think what came from that and from the work they've done before, we see the PCs taking on some of that in their election platform. They're promising paid work terms for students. Right now, nursing students have to work 1,500 hours of unpaid placements. Social work, 700 hours. Education, 4 months in the classroom. I think that was brought to a kind of higher profile in this election, where that was actually the third thing that PC leader Tony Wakeham said on the election, provincial election. So I was definitely intrigued in that. I think the provincial Liberals have engaged a lot less on this. Where
it does seem that way, doesn't it? Yeah, it seems like the PC seems to be more, and NDP seems to be more focused on the post-secondary aspect of it.
Yeah, and then you have the NDP who pretty much have committed to most or all of the asks of the student movement, and I think represent a lot of those kind of wishes, bringing back tuition to the pre-tuition level, and even mapping out in their platform how they were going to pay to do that. But yeah, I think there is definitely a question of whether that will translate into support and votes. I think a lot of the university is centered in the downtown core in the St. John's area, as well as in Corner Brook. And the question is whether that will be the big difference in terms of, does that translate to regular students who maybe aren't as active? Does that translate to regular voters? Or is the student vote going to be important? I think that's yet to be decided. But we'll be watching closely and seeing the outcomes of the race.
That's super insightful, but we're going to bring it back now to Hannah and Brian and Gander.
And here we are back again, and some back and forth there when we went to St. John's. Right now, the Liberals sitting at least leading, or we've got a couple people declared right now, but right on the edge of majority-minority, and well, technically we're into minority range right now at 20. Again, still a lot of votes to come in. Looking somewhat unofficially at who is now declared elected, we have Bernie Davis, we have Premier Hogan, we have opposition leader Tony Wakeham, and Lloyd Parrott, who are declared pending more polls coming in.
Yeah.
But, you know.
But speaking of some of the student aspect,
as well.
Yeah, lots of results coming in now. But some interesting results from our school system. So there's an organization called Civics that has a website called studentvote.ca. And basically it's an organization that's really trying to increase civic engagement through education systems. And so they did through, I believe it was elementary, intermediate, and high schools, they all did a vote. And the results are kind of interesting.
Kind of interesting, based on a field of almost 16,000 people, 15,893 total votes. So that's a decent sample size. But let's take a look at what they found with the PCs, 22, 38.5%, Liberals 12 at 39.1%, NDP 1 seat, 15.7%, and the independent or non-affiliates 3, 6.7%. And they actually looked at elected independents of Paul Lane, Eddie Joyce, and Edward Thomas Cole in Trinity Beta Bird.
But I think always interesting when you look at kind of the popular vote and how that translates into seats. So in the school election meant that the PCs had 22 seats, but the Liberals still had 39% of the population, or of the vote. So interesting to see. They were taught they talked about the issues, you know, the role of government, the future of the province, and this is what the students voted. So really interesting.
And you know, the whole idea of education and the democratic process and so on, such a huge part of shaping the students of today to become the voters of tomorrow. And in the high school cases, they will become voters within a couple of years or a year or so. So good on them for getting that. That's from the voice of a former teacher and so on. I think we are ready now to go to Grand Falls. So let's take a look at Amy Cody in Grand Falls, Windsor.
Thank you, Brian and Hannah. Yeah, it was really interesting to hear you talk about the students participating in the mock polls and voting. It's so important. I know my children, 2 in university now and 1 in grade 12, have come home to me and spoken to me about the projects that they're doing in school when it comes to federal, provincial, and municipal politics, and making themselves aware of who the candidates are. And it's always fun when I'm a multiple choice question on some of their tests, and I tell them, you know, you better get that one right. So, you know, it'd be interesting to see if they didn't. We definitely have to have a good sit-down conversation about that. But it's so important to talk about it, not just in the school system, but you see a lot of the candidates as well taking to social media and doing a lot of campaigning on social media, which is where the kids are paying attention. They're spending their time, you know, on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, depending on, you know, the age that you're in. And, you know, the kids will quickly remind you that we don't use Facebook, we use Instagram and TikTok, and Snapchat, of course. But when we talk about the importance of social media and candidates presenting themselves on social media, it's so important because the issue of harassment and bullying has come up a lot throughout the federal election, the provincial election, of course the municipal election. And Municipalities Newfoundland and Labrador is hearing from a lot of our members on the issues of bullying and harassment that they're facing in running elections and in being elected officials, and of course the staff as well, you know, being bullied and harassed while trying to do their jobs and run their communities. So it's a very important conversation to have with the students, how to conduct yourselves, how to behave, what's right, what's wrong, and just make sure that you're putting your best foot forward all the time. There's so much now of the keyboard warrior and people posting, you know, using, being anonymous, not posting their names, so not taking accountability for the words that you're saying. So you can't even go back and correct these individuals if their information that they're putting out there is not correct, because you don't know who it is that you're speaking to. So that's an important issue that municipalities are going to be talking to whoever forms government tonight. And of course, like I said, all parties involved. It's important that each party is invested, is aware, and can provide municipalities with the tools that they need to help combat these issues, to be able to respectfully disagree, and to be able to have the conversations and be able to move past, you know, these wrongs and these keyboard warriors, like I say. You know, it's difficult, and it's something that we'll be looking at for sure. We've been watching it through all this campaign, and we'll be continuing to watch very closely once this election is over as well.
And of course, Amy Cody in Grand Falls, Windsor, and you know, great insight into some of the things that are going to come across desks in the. This is now where the rubber meets the road. You know, once you're elected, you get sworn in, and then then you live up to all those things you promised, which is going to make an amazing fall and winter. We had an advanced poll not that long ago. Look at some of the numbers that we did have in that.
Yeah, so across the 40 electoral districts in Newfoundland and Labrador, there was 186 advanced polls, and 25,000 people voted in those advanced polls. So just interesting to see. Sometimes advanced polls tell us a little bit about how voter turnout will go. You know, if people are really engaged and kind of excited about the electoral process and the issues, they'll get out and vote early in the advanced polls. And then, you know, we were kind of curious with this election, if the municipal election being so close and overlapping, if that would have an impact on voter turnout. So something we're still waiting to see as the numbers come in, but the advanced polls give us a little bit of insight on how that's going.
And speaking of that word very close, just take a look at those numbers right now.
Yeah, 18,
Liberals
18.
and PCs are deadlocked. So
yeah, so
where does that leave things?
Yeah, and still lots of time for, you know, polling stations to report. Polls have been closed now for over an hour. So still a little bit early, but we're starting to see certain races kind of shape up and certain ones get pretty close.
Some very close, and we've got races right now that are within 100, 200 votes of each other, which at this stage of the game is inconsequential to anything in terms of results, and waiting to see now where they will eventually lead.
The anticipation is building a little bit.
Oh,
it's
heart
nice.
rate's increasing by the moment. Yeah, it's they never cease to be exciting. Lisa Dempster and Rumble Pie in a very close race. That's only, what, 180 votes ish. Of course, Fred Hutton, looks like Fred Hutton is declared elected in Conception Bay East, Bell Island. 1,000 vote margin there, so that's pretty safe. Barry Petton enjoying about a 500 vote lead over Ken McDonald, which is that had the makings of a tight race as well. Looks like Jim Parsons now 1362 to Charles Pender's 949. Gene Graham at 236. That's over in Corner Brook. Taking a look in exploits, 1524 for Pleeman Forsey. So some interesting numbers, but right now, let's
go back to Dustin.
Go back to Dustin
in Corner Brook.
Yep.
Absolutely cannot believe these numbers. We were just sitting here, and for a brief moment it looked like, well, we could be at a Liberal majority, and then it was tied up, and now look, just like that, the running numbers are showing 19 seats for the PCs, now slightly in the lead. So we've got a few updates, but right now some of the races are very close, even over here in Western Newfoundland. In Humber St. George, it looks like Hal Cormier is edging ahead a little bit, the PC candidate over Mark Lambswood. We do have Stephenville, Tony Wakeham, of course, being elected there. And up the coast, in Lanza Meadows, Kevin, Andrea Barber is up there putting it down, and it's a really close race up there. Yeah. You know, we all know Andrea from TikTok, but you know, she is so much more than that, right?
She has some of the coolest videos. I mean, her accent that she has really plays into the Newfoundland sound. Yeah. She's a lot of fun, a lot of energy. Yeah. Her TikTok videos. Yeah.
But she is more than a TikToker,
but she is as well. She's a very successful businesswoman. She's
a successful businesswoman. She has experience working for the federal government in some really interesting areas, and I do think she has a lot of leadership qualities. And of course, this area in the Northern Peninsula, in the federal election, they voted strong towards the Conservatives. So I think you know, that's why she's getting this support. But I think you mentioned that actually Andrew's running against
current minister.
A current minister, a very experienced veteran politician in the area, right?
Yeah, so it's a bit of a surprise. Now, that being said, if we look at the last provincial election in that very area, yes, a Liberal won. Yes, she did, but it wasn't a huge lead. Right. So, you know, going into this election, we're coming into an incumbent who's a minister, who is well known and well liked. But then we have Andrea Barber, whose social media presence has been astounding. She's had thousands of followers on social media prior to getting into this, moving into politics. So it's very interesting to see. I'm very excited to see how that kind of pans out, because that's one of the ones that I think we're seeing when we're looking at these numbers.
Yeah, it's going back and forth.
Yeah, I think her riding up there is kind of juggling a little bit.
Yeah. So Kevin, also we were just kind of joking off camera. So right now we see 18 and 18, and we're like, what happened if the election ended up like this? Would the independents take over Newfoundland? Would Eddie Joyce be king of Newfoundland
I think
if this is how it went down?
Well, obviously, I mean, we need 21 for a majority. So if this is how it ends, we're looking at a minority government. Honestly, it depends on who. At this point, it would depend greatly on who the speaker was going to be. If the speaker was a Liberal, then we're looking at a PC minority. If the speaker was a PC, we'd be looking at a Liberal minority. So
and just like, can you describe how important then, if that was the case, how important those other 4 seats become? Like, you know, I guess it becomes now the parties have to basically get those other seats on side in order to make things happen, right?
It becomes very good for the voters in those districts who have that NDP candidates and who have those independent candidates, because they will use their constituents' voices as leverage to get things done. So you mentioned Eddie Joyce, of course, who was in our region, Humber Bay of Islands, my district, which means that if this is how it ends tonight, I'm going to be quite happy with Eddie being in charge. You know,
I love independence. I love independence. You know, I really thought that this could have been an election where we saw a rise of independence. You know, because I think there are a lot of people, again, a discussion we're having, where I think they're politically engaged, motivated, and probably qualified, but they just don't feel like they've got a camp to go to right now. They don't feel really that liberal or conservative. Right?
Well, I think a lot of it too isn't even necessarily the party is following those ideologies, and I think the problem there becomes, you know, if you are a Liberal, is the Liberal Party following your ideology? If you are a Conservative, is the PC Party following your ideology? And if they aren't, what do you do? Right? Do you sacrifice yourself for the sake of the party, or you just have to go with an independent, right? And I think, you know, we have seen a few independents that have ran. Unfortunately, we only see 2 that are actually making headway here. But I would like to see more independents running.
But also the day and age we're in now, it's like it seems more possible than ever for an independent to have success. Before, you needed a party to be visible. You needed a party to have support. Now, if somebody like, maybe even if somebody like Andrea Barber, for instance, right, who's really well known, has her own following that she didn't need a party to really give her, maybe people like that are future politicians and might decide to run independently. But it must be a scary road to decide to run an election
because for those of you who don't know, if you're running in a campaign, whether it's provincial or federal, I think it's the same rules. If you don't get 10% of the vote, all the money that you put into the campaign is money spent on loss. If you get at least 10% of the vote, you do get to claim some of that back in your taxes. So running as an independent comes with a lot more risk. Because there's a good chance if you're running with a party, you're getting a lot more party funding, you're going to get some more support, and you likely might get more than 10%, which means you can get some of that money you invest into your campaign back. Independents aren't so lucky, so it is a bigger risk. I do think that if you're going to run as an independent, what you do have going for you now that we didn't have before, which is why I think we're seeing more now, is social media.
Yeah, exactly.
And social media is a great opportunity, a great venue for people who do want to run independent to get out there. As you mentioned, Andrea Barber's social media is booming. She's very popular, very liked.
Yeah. And very authentic in her social media. This is why
Absolutely.
I think she's doing good, right? It's not, she's just not, she does have a little bit of a character, and I think some feedback I've got from people whose store she went to up the coast and stuff, they're like, well, she was a little bit more normal, she was a little less silly. Of course, she's not always so silly, right? But she is herself, and when Andrea is somebody, when you meet her out in town, she is, she's just an impressive person. I think she has a great
recently
heart,
uploaded
so.
a video of her stuffing a turkey.
Right.
And it was hilarious.
Yeah.
That's who she is, but it's not a character that she puts on entirely.
Yeah.
I think we all have different character versions of
Sure.
ourselves, right?
Even right now, maybe.
Exactly, right? The person I am right now is not the person I am when I'm home with my family.
It's pretty close, though. It's pretty close.
Pretty close. Not too different, but I'm a bit sillier around my kids.
Yeah. Well, Kevin, I think, right now, here we are. It's still 18-18. We've got close races up there. It looks like St. George's Humber is getting even tighter.
This one here is interesting.
And this is very interesting as well. So hopefully when we come back, we've got more updates. But right now, back to Gander.
And tight race, it definitely is, looking at these numbers here, well, they're the same, 18 and 18, which is definitely looking at minority land. Still a ways to go. Anything can happen. I know I've been around elections and election coverage since I think the early 90s was the first time I did one of these. It's not over till it's over, but right now, I don't think I've ever seen one tied quite this long when now we have a PC lead again. So we've got districts flip-flopping.
But we have districts also within 4 votes, right? So
True. Yep. We have leads right now in amongst that mix of 4. We have many within 100. Those things can either gel down to a recount. Those things can change with one poll. So we're not making any declarations by any long shot. It looks as though Bettina Ford is
in Gander District.
In Gander District. Of course, Bettina, a longtime volunteer right in this very building for actually we have a number of cable volunteers throughout this election that are involved heavily in politics. So there are some really cool races, but right now it's anybody's guess as to what's going to happen. Okay, so we have Bettina officially declared elected, 2199 over Tom Healy, 1521.
But I think just kind of going back to what we were talking earlier in the Gander District, Bettina clearly well known in the community, and between being deputy mayor the last few years, but just her involvement across numerous organizations. Not a shock to see her kind of do well, but was really nice to see that the debate, the conversation between the PC and the Liberal was just so productive and respectful. So great to see.
It really is, and she'll do a great job as an MHA.
Absolutely.
And with a number of new faces, potentially a cabinet position.
Well, we'll see. It might be a
it depends.
At this point.
Who's in the big chair.
Yeah.
And right now,
19 to 17.
There's some surprises out there.
Yeah. It's getting exciting to watch because now we're back to 18-18. So clearly some close races that are going to flip-flop as these polling stations report in.
And, with a tied game and some close races, we may not actually have a declaration of a government tonight because, no doubt, I think it's under 50 votes, you go to a recount anyway. And we have races that are much tighter than that. So,
and if it does end up being a minority, I think John Harris mentioned earlier, it'll be interesting to kind of see how that plays out.
Yes.
Who ends up, taking power and how they navigate that.
Yeah, Sherry Gambon Walsh, of course, with about a 450 cushion over Power in Placentia Cape St. Mary's. St. Barb Lansom Meadows, incumbent Crystal Lynn Howell, 1490, 1605 for Barber. That's going to be an interesting, if it turns into an upset.
Definitely one to keep watching.
Yeah, former education minister, definitely one to watch. Jim Dinn looking pretty strong in his district right now. St. John's Center over Gemma Hickey. Sheila O'Leary. So this could be another NDP seat for Sheila O'Leary over Wayland. And St.
Okay.
John's East Kitty Vitty.
Yeah, well, let's check in with Laura Lydia and John Harris in St. John's.
So,
and welcome back to St. John's studio. And we are looking at the results right now, and just looking at the screen here, the party results, of course. So Liberal is in 19, PC is at 17, NDP is at 2, Independent is at 0, and other Independent is at 2, and other is at 0. We're seeing such a tight race, John. We're seeing, back and forth. It fluctuates. It's so neck and neck. So what happens, when two parties have equal seats?
Well, it's definitely not a very stable parliamentary situation. I think something like this actually happened in BC not long ago, where you had a pretty much neck and neck tied game, and it wasn't until after recount after recount, a few days after the election, did it turn out that the provincial NDP in BC had majority. But even in this province, back in 1971, when it was Frank Moores finally beat Joey Smallwood, who had been premier for 22 years, it was actually not a fully tied game, but it was 21 seats for the PCs and 20 for the Liberals. But because of the kind of back and forth between Joey trying to stay on as premier, trying to make a deal with Tom Burgess, who was the new Labrador MHA at the time, there could be a potential. If it does stay neck and neck, I see we have the Liberals leading. There could be some kind of king making going on. If we do have a complete tie, or if it's very close, we could have to see if Eddie Joyce or Paul Lane, who have are no stranger to party politics, have dipped their toes in both parties before, but maybe one of them will want to cross the floor and enter the Liberals or the PCs, depending on how that goes. But that's obviously speculation. We don't know what's going to happen at this point. In the St. John's districts, I'm very interested in the St. John. The closest one right now that we've seen is Sheila O'Leary and John Whalen.
Whalen, yeah, that is super close in comparison. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that one is one to watch. We've seen Sheila's run before, but in Virginia Waters, Pleasantville. This is her first time running in this district, being deputy mayor of St. John's for quite some time and in the council for longer, as well as Jim Din, who is leading now
right at this moment.
By quite a margin. I think that still need to watch those and see how that plays out. Obviously, I think Bernard Davis has been the projected win. We're still watching results trickling in. We don't want to call anything too early.
Yeah, and Eddie Joyce has also been...
But Eddie Joyce is back, and Paul Lane is back. I think those two people are just popular in their own right.
Yeah.
They don't need a party. I think earlier co-host had mentioned that, but you don't always need a party. If you're a big name in your district, you don't need the party behind you. You don't need the party apparatus, and that is certainly true about Paul Lane and Eddie Joyce.
100%, and being independent, and seeing them get reelected, they do so much for the community, and I think it's like good to see, of course, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely been a lot of independents that still make their voice heard, and I think Paul Lane and Eddie Joyce are definitely one of them. I think that when you look at the race here, it's definitely doesn't look like a very clear result for either the Liberals or the NDP yet. Liberals or the PCs yet. We've seen them kind of flopping back and forth.
Yeah, very fluctuating. Quite close, which is something that we kind of there you see on the screen there that Eddie Joyce, of course, with 3,400 votes, of course, and now we're looking at Humber, Grossmorn. Seeing a lot of things coming through the pipeline there. So, are any surprises have come up so far for you?
Well, I think seeing the local ridings, Sarah Studley had a chance to chat with her in an interview, and looks like she's leading I think we had Daryl Hines and Laura Bell, but two other candidates. They both participated in a election town hall along with Bernard Davis at Memorial University. So I got a chance to watch them both in action. It looks like she's in the lead by quite a bit, Sarah Studley. So Mount Pearl North, we see Lucy Stoyles has been declared. Jim Lester, who was very close last time, almost to the point where he was looking to potentially join the lawsuit that had been going on with a few MHAs, which you never want to see. You never want to see a result so close that you potentially need legal, the law to come step in and investigate. And unfortunately, that happened a lot the last election.
Yeah, it was ongoing for quite some time.
Yeah.
Too. Yeah.
So we definitely, it's definitely interesting to see how many districts are that close. I think when we get a little bit more information, it'll be a little more clear. But I hope that there's going to be a early consensus on, okay, we know for sure these people win, because it's never good to. I mean, if you look at Anthony Germain in the last federal election, it had been weeks. It had been weeks, and then suddenly you're not going to Ottawa. You're staying at home. But it's a very that part of the process is definitely tough. We see Jim Dinn with over 500 lead. It was close at first, but it's looking like it's narrowing.
And Sheila is leading, of course, with 1,600 over John Whalen. And also I did see as well for St. John's, there we go, Keith White is leading for the Liberals, of course, with Christina Ennis at 915, and Marius Normore. Yeah, so, Tony Wakeham, of course, with PC for the Stephenville Port is leading with 3,000. And so, we're seeing quite a few people already being elected into, seeing the results coming in quite fast, which is great to see. How about the numbers, in comparison? Are you seeing a trend that you've been noticing? Are you seeing lower, more numbers, more voters? What's your thoughts on that?
I definitely like to see all the numbers when they come out. I think last election during COVID, we saw a lot lower voter turnout. So I think anything can be better than what we saw last time. Bernard Davis looks like has been declared a winner with Raj Sharan, who's the president of the NLNDP.
That's right.
And he had this is not his first time running. He had ran in the 2000s. For a couple times. Yeah, Nicole Boland was a social worker. She ran, this is her second time running as well.
Yes.
Jamie Korab, the curler, a real estate agent and former city councillor, has taken that, or it looks like he's leading the race.
And John Hogan has been leading as well, so he's been leading in his district. So, of course, he's no, a stranger to politics. So, seeing his stance on that as well.
Yeah, I mean, seeing in 2021 when Hogan first came in, he knocked Chess Crosby off of the board there, which was a big win for the Liberals at the time, seeing John Abbott taking Alison Coffin's seat, and the big blowout that was the 2021 COVID year election, where we had so John Hogan looks like he's heading there again. One interesting thing that came up, I was able to go to the leaders debate, so I was participating in the scrum after I had the chance to ask John Hogan about something that I have really been passionate about, which is electoral finance reform.
Yes.
So electoral finance in the province of Newfoundland and Labrador is one of two that has unlimited corporate donations. And he when I talked to John Hogan about it, he signaled that maybe this next, if reelected, he's looking to potentially change that. Obviously, we get an update now, and it looks like there's PC are leading or declared winner in 20 of the 40 districts. It's definitely still too early to call, but there one more for the PCs, and they would be in majority territory. I think that's a very interesting proposition. Another thing that John Abbott mentioned is that John Hogan mentioned is that Chess Crosby donated as an individual, $300,000 to the PC campaign. So he kind of shot back at my idea that the corporate donations were the problem, and said that individual donations was a problem. And I think probably both are the big outlier in terms of provinces and jurisdictions. So I'm interested to see what kind of electoral reform. Alison Coffin highlighted that, and she's no stranger to beef with Elections NL, but she, having taken them to court. But the interesting thing that she highlighted was that there's no rule against running in more than one district.
That's right. She's proven that, obviously. So, yeah.
So she made a point of, I'm going to run not only let me just. She's running in Harbor
Grace and Carbonear, I believe. Yes.
Yeah. So that's an interesting. I think she's in fourth place in those districts.
She is. Yes.
But it is definitely a lot of what independents are able to do is highlight things that maybe the parties aren't paying attention to.
Exactly.
And that is definitely something, electoral finance reform, I think, is definitely something that needs to be explored more by all parties.
Absolutely. And we're going to throw it now to Brian and Hannah in Gander.
And taking a look, we do have some people now that we can declare at least unofficially, officially elected. Quite a few, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, the numbers have been coming in quickly, and as you can see on the bottom of the kind of overall party results, we're now kind of steady at 20 for the PC and 16 for the Liberals. And just a reminder that you would need 21 districts to form a majority government. But let's take a look at some of the results that are pretty firm. Brian, why don't you kick us off?
Yeah, okay. In the district of Bonavista, Vista, it looks like Craig Party has risen to the occasion. He is, as of now, declared elected.
And in Burgeo-Lapoil, how do you say
Lapoil.
that? Lapoil.
Yep.
It's Michael King for the Liberals.
On down, of course, Conception Bay, East Bell Island, Fred Hutton has been declared elected.
And Corner Brook, looks like Jim Parsons of the Liberal Party is declared.
And Elvis Lovelace, looks like you are successful in Fortune Bay, Cape Lahoon.
And that's for the Liberals as well.
Yes.
And then Bettina Ford in Gander for the Liberals is declared.
Okay, still looking, keeping an eye on our Grand Falls, Windsor Buckens. Not ready to make a statement on that one yet. Of course, a healthy lead in Harbour Grace, Port de Grave. Pam Parsons, Liberal candidate, successful there.
And in Harbour, Maine, we have Helen Conway Ottenheimer for the PCs declared.
And over to Humber Bay of Islands, Eddie Joyce, Independent. Looks like you are successful there as well.
Humber Grossmorn, we have Mike Guzny of the PC Party.
And in Mount Pearl North, Lucy Stoyles for the Liberal Party. Looks like you have been declared elected as well.
And then Mount Pearl Southlands, as we talked about earlier, Paul Lane, who's an independent, is declared.
St. John Center, Jim Din. Looks like you are successful there.
And
Stephenville, Port-au-Port.
St. John's West, we have Keith White of the Liberal Party.
Okay, yeah. And in Stephenville, Port-au-Port, we're looking at Tony Wakeham.
Yeah, the leader
and
of the PCs.
if things are going the way they are, it could be Premier Tony Wakeham.
And then Terra Nova, we have Lloyd Parrott of the PC Party is declared.
In Tornegat Mountains, Leela Evans for the PC Party.
And then for Virginia Waters Pleasantville, we have Bernie Davis for the Liberals.
And rounding things out, at least for now, in Waterford Valley, it looks like Jamie Korab is declared elected there.
And Windsor Lake, of course, we have.
Of course, Windsor Lake, John Hogan is your successful person there. Right now, we're sitting at 20 PC leading or elected, 16 Liberal, 2 NDP, and 1 Independent.
And a lot of close races still
well,
fighting it out.
Yeah, we've got some surprises too. You know, last check, Bennett over Butt, 10 votes.
Let's flip it over to Amy in Grand Falls and get her take on Chris Tibbs.
Hey, thank you, Brian and Hannah. Yeah, it's been an interesting night here in Grand Falls, Windsor. It looks like Chris Tibbs, the incumbent for Grand Falls, Windsor Buckens, has a clear lead, and we're expecting that he will be declared any moment, actually. Pleeman Forsey in the District of Exploits also has a very clear lead. He's also an incumbent, so we're waiting on word on his election as well, and whether or not they will declare him elected in the next little bit. You mentioned Lewisport Twillingate, of course, a very interesting race happening there with incumbent Derek Bennett and Mark Butt. That's very, very close, too close to call. That one is super interesting to watch here as well. So again, it's a lot of interesting results happening here tonight. Some are no surprise. You just kind of had a feeling of what was going to happen across the province. Very good to see the 3 leaders have been declared re-elected. Our independent members have been re-elected. Always have a strong showing in the House of Assembly, extremely popular with the people in their ridings, of course, but also across the province, very vocal. You know, through the media and the call-in shows and whatnot, you do hear a lot from them and the work that they do, and certainly you know, sitting as an independent in the House is different, and you have you know, a lot of freedom, and they get to speak a lot outside of the House of Assembly, and they represent their constituents very, very well. So they've certainly been rewarded tonight for the work that they do in their districts. We're going to keep watching here in Grand Falls, Windsor to see, you know, what the final numbers are going to be. And of course, with all of the back and forth here between the Progressive Conservatives and the Liberals, the flipping of the seats, it's interesting, and like, you know, it could be very late before we actually have a true tally and true numbers onto who is going to form government tonight. So we'll wait and see. Again, we have reached out to candidates here in these areas. We're hoping to be able to talk to some of them later on and get their thoughts and their feelings on what has transpired here this evening and how they're feeling about the results. I don't know about everybody else, but I know I'm a little bit electioned out. I'm happy for tonight to soon be over, and hoping for 4 years of just no elections. We came off of the federal election, and then we moved into the municipal election and the provincial election right on top of that. So it'll be interesting to see what the voting numbers are tonight. Voter fatigue is absolutely a real thing, and when you're battling a municipal and a provincial election, you have so many overlapping names, people who have served on municipal councils running in a provincial election. There was some confusion at the doors, and when people went to check their ballots, expecting to see a specific name on a ballot and it not being there, or seeing a ballot on a different, or seeing a name on a different ballot, not expecting it to be on that ballot. Municipalities, Newfoundland and Labrador, ran the Make Your Mark campaign, the U for Council, encouraging people running for municipal council to change the colors of their signs, try not to use the 3 main colors of the provincial party, the red, the blue, the orange. So you saw a lot of signs, with different color themes, purples, yellows, pinks even. So yeah, it's certainly been an interesting campaign. We're happy for it to soon be over, and we'll know the results soon enough. So for now, it's back to you, Bruce and Hannah. Brian and Hannah.
And here we are back again. Some interesting things since we last left. Of course, we're looking right now at the overall numbers. 20 for the PC, 16 for the Liberals, 2 for the NDP, 2 for the Independents. Some interesting things have happened since we last spoke.
It's hard to keep track. It's happening so quickly, and the numbers are moving fast.
I guess the biggest surprise right now, well, no surprise, but the biggest upset, Mark Butt over Derek Bennett.
Lewisport.
In Lewisport, yeah. That's been very much a tight race the whole night. But looks like all polls are in, and Mark Butt has come out on top there.
But within 100 votes, so close race.
So close race. Would that be contested? Would that be? I that's for other people to decide. But Mark Butt with all the polls in right now. Interesting thing in Cape St. Francis, and an interesting factoid. Thank you to our friends for telling us this. You find out all sorts of things from people you know. But the district of Cape St. Francis has been PC since Confederation.
So as long as it's been a district, it has been
A PC district.
Yeah.
So, you know.
And stayed PC this round.
And
so.
it states, yeah,
Yeah.
congratulations to Jody Wall of the PC party in keeping that color alive in Cape St. Francis. But that district has never been anything other than PC. So, you know, things you find out. Barry Petton in Conception Bay South has been elected. What were some of the other ones we had? Did we mention Jim Parsons? Jim Parsons in Corner Brook.
Yeah.
And so the things are shaping up. It's, you know, there's several fairly clear winners right now, but there's still a few. Well, speaking of, Leela Evans 859 over Powell with 29 and Morris with 10. So, and that's a safe bet. Bernie Davis likewise 2382 to 759 to 647. So, a great showing by the NDP candidate there as well. Jamie Corab declared, I think that's since we last spoke, 25-27 over Tomlin, 1457.
But staying right now for the last few minutes anyways, staying with 20 PC seats and 16 Liberals, so we could be looking at a minority government. We'll see how these last 10 seats or so kind of land, because that will make a big difference to whether we have a minority or if the PCs can pull out a majority government. But let's go to Dustin in Corner Brook, because obviously a tight and interesting race that we were watching closely there. So let's get his take on how that ended up.
Well, we are back over here in Western Newfoundland. Congratulations, Jim Parsons, elected for Corner Brook. Congratulations, Mike Guzny, elected up there in Humber, Gross Morin. And of course, Eddie Joyce takes it again as an independent. We still have a few ridings in our area to cover. And Gander, I wish you would just stop stealing all of our thunder. You leave the West Coast guys to us, and we'll talk about them. You talk about your people. We'll have a good episode, okay?
There we go.
Kevin, right now this number's been bouncing back and forth. Right now it just popped over to 21 seats PC, which is how many seats either party is going to need to form a majority government. But let's say that's not what happens. Let's say we end up with a minority government. From your position, what are some advantages? What are pros and cons of having a minority government? It wouldn't all be bad.
Right. So I'm an advocate that there are good policies on both sides of the aisle, right? So I believe that there are good points to be made from all the parties, from all the members in that. And when you have a minority government, that's when you get to hear a lot more of that, because that's when they have to really work together, really negotiate, and really focus on that. So if we end up tonight with a minority government, that's not something for anyone to be upset about.
Right.
A minority government means that the people in power, for instance, if we go with 20 seats, the reason why that's a minority, by the way, is because the leading party would assign a speaker, which would bring them from 20 seats down to 19 seats, which would mean the other remaining 19 seats will belong to other parties. So the result there becomes, they now have, in order to pass some of the things that they want to pass or to do some things they want to do, work and negotiate with other politicians, other MHAs. So that means that, for instance, we've got our 2 independents, we've got 2 NDP. There's a very good chance that if we have a Liberal government, you're going to see a minority government, you're going to see a lot of that happening with negotiating. We've seen that federally, of course. When federal government came in, we had to see a lot of the Liberal Party work with the Bloc, work with the NDP under Jagmeet Singh, and so on. And we could see that again here in Newfoundland if it continues down that route. Otherwise, I think that, for me, I personally enjoy seeing the minority government in play, because when we see the minority government, we see just that. We see
know it's going to be cooperation.
A lot of cooperation.
It's not going to be anything steamrolled through government because of one party's will. And so
and I think it gives more of a voice to the people. Right?
Yeah.
Because that's really when these MHAs that get into power really want to talk to the constituents, talk to the people who are representing them, or who they're representing, I should say, and really find out how they're going to make this work. Because the other side to that is, in the next election, they want a majority. So in the next election, this is really going to, during this period of minority, when they're really going to focus on the people, they're really going to listen to the voices and really work towards building a campaign and a policy for the next election that could project them into a majority.
Yeah. Well, it almost sounds kind of ideal, especially with some of the big things just on the table for Newfoundland in the coming years, this MOU and just things with such, things that can really dictate the future of Newfoundland the next 50, 100 years. We're talking our kids, we're talking our grandkids. And what we hope, no matter who wins, whoever comes into power here, we need our government to really make the best decisions for us here right now. And really, Newfoundlanders need to be part of that decision. So this is why voting matters. And I got to say, when I look at some of these numbers here tonight, like some of these votes, they just look like big turnouts. When I see the Pasadena area, Humber, St. George's, and even up the coast, like the amount of vote that I'm seeing here looks pretty strong. So, and I know there was a lot of get out to vote efforts made by all parties, and I guess it just makes me happy to see people actually go out to the polls, but we'll find out what percentage of Newfoundlanders actually did vote, won't we?
Yeah, and I think we're seeing a good number, and I'm surprised because this is 3 elections this year for us, right?
Right.
We're
all a bit fatigued.
Well, we are. We had our federal election earlier in the year, which didn't really warrant a huge turnout, but still a decent turnout. Our municipal elections would happen right across the province as well. Unfortunately, I know that Corner Brook didn't have a large turnout for that. But I think in this provincial election, we're seeing a bit more of a turnout. I think people are really starting to see, because a lot of the issues that we have, right, healthcare is a huge issue. And it's not the federal government that runs our healthcare system, it's our provincial government. Education, we're seeing people concerned. Of course, we heard some of our co-hosts across the province talk a bit about things like bullying in school and things that are happening in our education system. That's provincial as well. Our roads and highways. I know my sister-in-law didn't win. It looks like Michael King is declared the victor in Burgeo-LaPointe, so congratulations.
Congrats,
Michael. But my sister-in-law actually drove down to Burgeo and actually hit a pothole in an area where there was no cell service. So she experienced firsthand the dangers of our highways and lack of cell service. These are provincial issues. And I think that we're seeing a lot of people realizing the difference between the provincial issues, the federal issues, municipal issues. And I think that a lot of the problems that we're having, we're realizing are provincial. And I think we're going to see more people out and vote. I think we're going to start seeing good numbers compared to our municipal and federal elections this year because of that.
I have to agree. And recently I made a little kind of throwaway post on Facebook and just shared an opinion. I woke up one morning and I saw some things in the news and shared my heart and thought, it seems like, it seems a little bit weird that we're this province so filled with resources, so everything is around us, yet we're still a have-not province and we're still so in debt, right?
So we're actually a half province.
Yeah, well, we're a half province with a debt that is, such a striking debt, but filled with resources. We are we have debt. And most of the comments, even you, I think, jumped in and agreed. But there were those who think, had this opinion that it doesn't matter, nothing's going to change. It doesn't matter who you vote for. What we need to do as Newfoundlanders is just take care of ourselves and go out and bootstrap ourselves. And it doesn't matter who we vote for because it's been the same thing and it will be the same thing in the future. What do you think about that?
Well, I think when I look at 21 PC, 15 Liberal right now, I disagree with that statement.
Yeah, things can change. But maybe her point was, it doesn't matter who wins. It's just politics is politics. But I mean, to me, that cannot be true. And also, we've only been part of this freaking country for like 75 years, and we're still dealing with, as a province, the fallout from how that went down, which now we can look back and say, that wasn't the greatest for us. There's a lot of aspects of Confederation that, I think Newfoundlanders were done wrong by, right? And certainly if you ask our Indigenous community as well, you know? So, and that's probably a topic we can jump in on the next cut-in. I think we got to throw it back to Gander, but any final remark here, Kevin?
No, just want to congratulate all of those in our area that have won so far. Congratulations to all of you. And of course, we're here in the city of Corner Brook. Congratulations again going out to Jim Parsons and his victory. And of course, Humber Bay of Islands, Eddie Joyce as well.
Absolutely. And we're going back to Gander right now, but you'll hear from us again shortly.
And we're back. And this thing is shaping up right now. 21 seats for the Progressive Conservatives, 15 for the Liberals, 2 NDP, 2 Independent. So right now, slightly in the majority
Yeah.
range.
Yeah, it looks like the PCs could pull off a majority if the numbers stay the way they are now.
Standing on eggshells and
Yeah, we don't want to call that too soon, of course.
No,
There's still
nothing called yet.
a lot of close districts, but I think, Kevin and Dustin were making some good points about minority governments and how they can be effective for the people, right? We've seen that federally. We've had short bursts of it here provincially as well, where
and it usually means we're back here sooner rather than.
And you love a good election show, Brian.
I love election. I think we started talking this like late last year when we were going into the new year, going, okay, 2025 is a 3-election year because it has to be. And then as they got closer and closer to the time crunch, we knew we were going to have overlapping campaigns. So, but despite that, the whole voter fatigue model didn't set in. So, we are in fact quite healthy in terms of a voter turnout.
Well, when you look at the environment kind of going into this election, we had 10 years of a Liberal government and we have some big issues on the table. So you have a combination of things, I think, to get people engaged. There's obviously people who want change. Often when you see long stretches of one party being in power, it's not uncommon to see that people want a different voice.
And apparently three-peats are rare, if not non-existent. Once you get past, say, the Joey Smallwood era, and he was, 22, 24 years as premier, but that's the rarity. And in today's modern political arena, that's something you don't see anymore.
Yeah, and I think John Hogan, obviously hadn't been tested by the electorate. He did, of course, win his seat, but to see, how his party performs tonight was definitely something we were all watching for. Did he have enough time to show the people of the province what he was made of and what his vision was for the future of the province?
And I mean, the element of change is just that. We've gone through, the heavyweights that aren't there anymore, that are not running.
Well, yeah, you went through the list off the top, right? There's a lot of big names that didn't run.
These are pillars of the political scene and have been for several terms prior. But also, let's just fast track to the last election. Let's look back. We were in the depths of COVID, which was we never have a COVID
time.
election again.
Yeah.
The first election we tried got canceled the night before because everybody got COVID, and you couldn't get poll workers and on down the list. So Dr. Fitzgerald simply said, nope, no election tomorrow. We had 3 different leaders. We had a different premier. That whole political landscape has changed along with these 11, 12 heavyweights that are not in the scene anymore.
Absolutely. And I think it's hard not to feel like there's a lot at stake.
Yeah.
There's a lot of big issues. And I think, when you look at just even the economy and cost of living, of course, we're all feeling it. So
change brings about change.
Yeah. All right, well, let's check in with Laura Lydia and John Harris in St. John's.
And welcome back to the St. John's studio with myself and John Harris. And looking at the results right now, coming in, it's still quite close. And to give you some sort of context on that, right now we're seeing the PC party with 21 seats, the Liberal Party with 15, and the NDP, of course, with 2, and the non-affiliated is with also 2. So there's still some, polls that I have not reported yet. So right now, out of the 1,665, we're at 1,530. Oh, jumped again. We're at 1,500 polls reporting at this moment. And the votes are still coming in strong, which we are seeing. And, Liberal Party right now is at 81,023 votes. Then we got the PC at 82,034 votes. So still pretty neck and neck here. And the NDP was at 15,090 votes. So it's still quite close.
Absolutely. It is way too close to call at this point in terms of, we're still waiting for over 100 polls. When you look at it, though, it is clearly a disappointment for the Liberal Party coming into the election with a majority government, following Andrew Furey and Dwight Ball, who all had majorities. It's clearly a poor showing from the Liberal Party this time around, whatever the result will be. I think that, when we see the Jordan Brown Labrador West, That seat is a loss for the NDP, but they are keeping the 2 seats that they had right now. I think that really the winner to this election so far is definitely Tony Wakeham and the PCs. I think they had the most to prove. The Liberals had the most to lose, and the NDP are just chugging along at stasis level, keeping it the same. But it's very much, we obviously can't make the call right now, but some big upsets. I think seeing Crystal Lynn Howell, who had been the education minister, the health minister, she has lost her seat to Andrea Barber.
That's right.
We have Shazia Raza, who was going after the Jordan Brown's incumbent seat. He's now mayor of Labrador City. And she unfortunately, for her, became in 3rd place and lost. It seems like she's lost that election. There's other kind of, Laura Belmba. We're watching her as a Rogers alumni, but of course, Paul Lane and Eddie Joyce are staying in the House of Assembly. They both have their seats. And interestingly, if it does continue to be 21-15, 2 and 2, what we'll see is there'll have to be a speaker elected as well.
That's right.
And typically, you don't want to have a tie every time that you make a vote on a bill, and then you don't really want the speaker to have to vote in those elections. So right now, it's still 21. If this does continue this way, it wouldn't necessarily be a strong majority for the PCs, with the need of a speaker who would have to leave the caucus and be a kind of nonpartisan, only to vote in cases of a tie. So that's also something to watch. But very much Tony Wakeham seems like he might be having a great night over there in Stephenville. So
they could be celebrating hard, and of course we're seeing a lot of tight, runs here. For a perfect example, the Paradise Topsail. We got Paul Dinn running there with Dan Bobbitt. That's a very, very tight race at the moment. And speaking about standings, especially in comparison to our last election in 2021, we're seeing back then Liberal having 22 seats, and at dissolution, of course, at 19. The PC is kind of where we're seeing it backwards in the sense that, they had 13 seats, of course, and the NDP with Jim Dinn had 2 seats and Independent had 3. So, it seems this year a complete opposite of what we saw in 2021. And what do you think that is?
I think that it's definitely hard for any government to be in power for 10 years and stay extremely popular, especially when you're seeing the tides of the economy change. And a lot of that might not have to do with the government of the day, but a lot of the scandals that have come out of the travel nurse debacle, where they're spending all this money on travel nurses and all of this kind of impact that has continued with the healthcare system. Long after COVID is over, I think that the reason for COVID can only last so long. I think we see a struggle in the housing situation that wasn't completely managed in the way that people were hoping. I think when you saw the tent city for change became big in St. John's, but also homelessness across the province.
100%.
And
we're seeing Newfoundlanders really feeling it, and this is a big thing in the riding this year. And affordability, and seeing what candidates are actually making those promises and what that looks like for everyone, and that's a big indicator for this election.
And I think the Liberals' hope was that their answer, being the MOU, would change affordability, was maybe a little bit too difficult to swallow or accept. That this MOU will be the solve for all of our problems. I think that what Tony Wakeham was able to capture in terms of that would be the general change vote, the general "I'm sick of this" kind of vote.
Exactly.
And I think that's where you see his message translating. I think we didn't necessarily see that translating from the NDP when it came to, well, our solution is fiscal responsibility. We're going to have a costed platform. We're going to map everything out. We're going to be the party of fiscal responsibility. That didn't necessarily translate. I think that the general "I'm sick of this" change message may have worked.
change seems to be the big indicator this time. And, you know, seeing, like you said, affordability when it comes to healthcare is another huge thing that we're seeing. You know, wait times are huge. You know, ERs, emergency rooms are closing, you know, and the shortage of nurses and other doctors. So what do you think, you know, would be the best route for each political party to take in this?
I think that when you look at the healthcare system, you have a lot of the unions worrying about privatization. I think that travel nursing being a huge part of how the provincial government has dealt with the nursing shortage crisis has caused a lot of headache for the provincial government, because I think that using travel nurses, while maybe not have been the intention, created a lot of, you know, look at all the money you're blowing on travel nurses when you have nurses that could be paid, you know, they're spending 4 times as much as they would on a travel nurse that they could a provincial nurse. But I think that there needs to be a better work around in terms of people wanting to live where they live and work where they live and not wanting to travel to rural areas. And how can you do that within the nursing system? And it looks like the nurses union and the provincial government were starting to work on those, and Mental Health Services were working on those types of solutions. I don't think it happened quickly or fast enough to really stop the kind of fallout from the travel nurse debacle. And I think that generally you do have to really show that you can solve this problem. And I don't necessarily think the Liberals won people over on the healthcare issue. I think that trying to focus the whole election on a memorandum of understanding that not a whole lot of people really can fully understand and has a lot of questions surrounding it and has not necessarily had that full independent review that people are looking for, may have been a mistake for the Liberal Party.
I absolutely agree with you. And so right now, you know, we're looking at the results, but we're going to throw it back to Brian and Hannah over in Gander.
Looking at some pretty constant numbers there right now. Just, I guess, a little bit of a clarification of those numbers. The Liberals are actually declared in 15 of those 15. The NDP are declared in their 2.
No, just one.
In just one of those 2.
Yeah.
And both independents are declared.
That's right. And
PC's last check were declared in 14.
15 now.
Now 15 and leading in 6.
So just to kind of give a lay of the land, six districts are still very close.
Some of them within a handful of votes.
So when you look at that 21 to 15, we're still not quite at a point where we can declare that there is a PC majority, although that is leaning that way.
It is leading that way right now to, you know, to be just that.
Yeah, so definitely some tight races, some races still to watch, but they are coming in quickly. As you can see on the screen, a lot of those polling stations are reporting in. So we're getting very close to having the full results. We're just not quite there yet.
But almost. Yeah, as in, don't go to bed yet. It's going to happen any second at all.
This is one to watch, yeah.
This is going to be one to watch, but certainly right now, as it stands, PCs with a projected 21, the Liberals would have projected 15, NDP with 2, and 2 independents.
But you know, Brian, it's kind of interesting. We were looking at the student vote that was put off by Civics, an organization that, you know, encourages civic participation by our school system, and they had predicted 22 seats PC, 12 seats Liberal, and right now they are pretty close.
You know,
to what's happening.
I taught for 31 years, and one thing I did learn was never second guess students.
Well, and you know, I'm sure they're listening to their parents, but it would be really interesting to see if that's how it lands up tonight.
Well, you know, it was very, very close, and I think once we revealed those numbers, they sort of blended into the reality of tonight. So you never know, you know, but right now those numbers are hanging on pretty constant, and the kids were pretty much bang on.
Let's go back to Amy in Grand Falls.
Hi, thanks again, Brian and Hannah. Again, a very interesting night. I want to say congratulations to Chris Tibbs for Grand Falls Windsor Buckins on his re-election, and of course Pleeman Forsey in the District of Exploits on his re-election as well. Interesting races happening here in Central. Still waiting on some results. The Lewisport-Twillingate District, of course, is a real nail-biter. Interesting to be a fly on the wall in those headquarters tonight, just to see what people's thoughts are, how the candidates are feeling, and to see who's going to come out victorious there tonight. All of the districts in central Newfoundland, some excellent candidates putting their names forward. It's always encouraging to see when there is an interest in serving, whether it's at the municipal level, the provincial level, or the federal level. Very interesting to see, the progression from the municipal politics to provincial and federal. Again, like we said off the top of the program tonight, we lost a lot of fabulous municipal candidates who decided to throw their hat in the race for provincial politics. Some of them victorious tonight, some of them not. So, it'll be interesting to see how they feel about their choices. Do they wish they had stayed the municipal route? We'll see what happens, but it's going to be certainly some reflection from those candidates. So again, we'll continue to watch the results as they come in and wait for those final numbers. Hopefully it won't be too much longer. I want to say a big thank you to Rogers Communications, who has always been so supportive of community events on the municipal level. Broadcasting our municipal council meetings, making sure that the community is formed, participating in our municipal events right across the region. Always there to support, lend a hand. If you're looking for volunteer opportunities, then you should certainly reach out to Rogers and offer your time and talents to them, because the work that they're doing is certainly valuable to our communities. So again, thanks to the residents for tuning in. Thank you to Rogers for asking me to sit in and weigh in on my thoughts and feelings for tonight. Congratulations again to everybody for putting your name on that ballot. Municipalities Newfoundland and Labrador looks forward to working with all of you. And the work starts tomorrow, I can guarantee you that. And we look forward to it. So good night from here in Grand Falls, Windsor. Thanks again for having me. Good luck and to the remaining in the race, and congratulations to those victorious.
And thank you as well, Amy Cody in Grand Falls, Windsor. So great to have the voice from Grand Falls, Windsor and surrounding areas, and certainly a lot of pivotal seats so far. Numbers still remaining constant. 21 PC leading or elected, 15 Liberal, 2 NDP, 2 Independents.
Yeah, so 7 districts we're still waiting on some polling stations to come in, and those are not confirmed races. So we still have some exciting politics ahead of us tonight.
Which kind of goes hand in hand with these elections. That you wait, and until you get that mixture and formula, you can't make that declaration. So as of right now, we do not have a declared government right now. We're still waiting on some very, very close races, some of them down to a handful of votes in the difference. So you wait till the last poll is in. Of course, Windsor Lake, you see John Hogan, retains his seat. His party not holding the balance of power as it stands right now. Lynn Paddock over Owen Burt. A handy victory there. So those are some of your handy ones. Likewise, party elected in Craig Party in Bonavista.
So what do you think this means for John Hogan tomorrow if the PCs do pull out a majority government? He won his seat, so he still, of course, has that. But what do you think what kind of conversations are the Liberal Party having?
Well, you basically start with the fact that we were the government today, but we're not tomorrow, if that is the final end result. And then you regroup. People that were cabinet ministers will not be cabinet ministers tomorrow. You know? And you sign off, and then you become a backbench opposition person. So lots to think about.
Lots to think about. We'll see how this ends. But let's go over to Dustin in Corner Brook and wrap up there.
Okay. Things are so spicy right now, Kevin. We said that there was going to be fireworks in this election, and there really is. And just for the viewers, so we see there's 21 seats for the PCs, 15 for the Liberals. But currently what that actually is, Kevin, right, is 16 confirmed seats for the PCs, and then the remainders are like the ones that are fluctuating. But
yeah, the 5 leaning PC, 5 seats that are leaning. And they're very tight. Like if we see some of these numbers that are popping up that don't have that little check mark.
Like Humber, St. George's there, Lambswood and Cormier. Like that is so tight. That's a couple hundred votes in the difference. Yeah. And that could still go either way, right? And a lot of these different ridings.
You know, that's a riding that I find hard to decide who I like most.
Same.
You know, I love Hal. He's great.
Yeah.
Of course, Lambswood. Some of you who are hockey fans that watch hockey, Western Kings, here on Rogers TV will recognize that voice with Will Smith. He does a lot of the hockey games as well. So.
And Jeff Lambswood is the car salesman. Great guy too. But Lambswood has been involved in tourism on a provincial level and stuff in the past, right? But Hal as well is a very smooth operator, and he's got some great ideas as well. So as a resident of Pasadena, I think I'm going to be good either way. But wow, that is a super, super close one.
Yeah, and you know, I think that's part of the exciting part. Like, I know we're getting close to near the end, and I think some of our co-hosts across the province have mentioned, you know, sometimes when you get elections that are ending this close, some of these districts or ridings are ending this close, the question of concern is recounts, right? Are we going to see some recounts? And I think what excites me is that possibility.
I hope
right?
so. That's how you know that.
Well, we've seen it federally, right?
Yeah, like Jonathan Rowe out there in Clarenville, right? They had to do a big recount there against Anthony
and he
Germain,
ended up winning,
and he won it.
So after not.
So it's even still not over when it's over.
Exactly. So these results can go on for quite some time before we actually have a definitive if there's going to be any recounts, whatnot.
Yeah.
But that being said, you know, I don't think there's anything to be too upset about. I think that you know, if you're a Liberal supporter and you're seeing these numbers and you're kind of, you know, a bit worried or cautious about that, just take a look at the popular vote right now. The popular vote, they're pretty close in terms of popularity. So you know, and that's, I think, a very important thing to remember is the population of the people that are supporting and that are voting. You know, we're going to have different ideologies. We will. That's just kind of how it works. But I think that when we see, you know, elections like this, and we're seeing these kinds of popular, you know, percentage voting versus what we're seeing in the seats, we're realizing that it's not a landslide either way. Yeah. And I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
You know, that's something to be happy with, regardless of what your party you support is or the policies that you support. Knowing that it's not a landslide either way, for me, gives me a little bit more peace of mind.
For sure. And I think one thing we should hopefully be able to wake up and remember tomorrow is that we're all Newfoundlanders. Yep. What's good for you is really what's good for me. And we need to just kind of come back together and not be so, I mean, these parties in reality aren't that far apart. Like they're not as extremely as far apart as, say, on a federal level, the Conservatives. Some people I've heard made a critique that our province has 2 Liberal parties, right? But I don't necessarily agree with that. But I'm kind of happy to see that there's going to be a little bit of a refresh now leading into some of the biggest decisions that the province is going to face in these modern times. It looks like right now that we're going to wake up and have a PC government, right?
So here's Hal Cormier, he just got his check mark.
Hal Cormier just gets his check mark. This is the new MHA up in Pasadena area, Massey Drive, and St. George's. And I just want to go on record to say, stupidest riding configuration ever. Here we are in Pasadena, right between Steadybrook and Deer Lake, but we're down in the riding with St. George's and Massey Drive.
Have you not seen the mapping of the Humber Bay of Islands with Corner Brook in them?
Okay, they're all kind of bad, but I'm just meaning to say, I think that was done for political politicking reasons and not really because, you know, to group together common communities. Yeah. Anyway, that's my 2 cents. Kevin, it's been so fun to host this with you. Man, Thank you for being my short notice co-host. You're such a
I think we're both a little bit crazy how much we actually get involved and enjoy this political stuff, but it's an absolute pleasure to do with you and to share it with all of you across this province. I love this format, by the way, of across province.
I love it too. I really feel honored that that Corner Brook can join this broadcast and we can speak for our people and to our people. And thank you, everyone at home, folks of Western Newfoundland, for joining us tonight for this coverage. Of course, it's been our tremendous pleasure, and huge congratulations to our newly elected MHAs. We look forward to seeing you get to work with our newly elected MP and our newly elected municipal leaders. So that's it for us tonight from Corner Brook. Best of luck to everybody. Shout out to our colleagues in Gander and in St. John's. And Kevin, why don't you say goodnight for us?
And Grand Falls.
And Grand Falls, yes.
They're all there. So yeah, again, thanks again, Dustin. Rogers TV, great programming for this, and I love the fact that this is made available so publicly. So guys, thank you so much, and all of you who watched, and for all of you who got on a vote, take part in your democratic right and obligation. Thank you, and good night.
Good night.
Well, huge thank you to Dustin and Kevin. Some great insights there at the end on how they're feeling as we get close to wrapping this up. NTV is declaring a PC minority.
Yeah, minority. And it's probably a safe bet right now with the districts that are so close.
Yeah, so
there's some that are definitely going to go to a recount. I mean, we've got, we were just looking at 12 votes? Yeah.
Lewisport's
yeah,
close,
very, very close. You know, so
this must be stressful for those candidates in those districts where it's so close.
Well, the thing is, too, you've just come through a 28-day campaign. You are tired.
Yeah.
You have canvassed the island. You've talked till late hours in the day. You try to hit as many spots as you can. Now you're still wondering what the end result will be. You know, sometimes, boom. I mean, we've had candidates declared in less than a half hour on election day.
Yeah.
For some now, this could be days before it's an absolute, you know, final result. You know, if the recount is still close, does it go to a judicial recount, in which case a justice would have to sit down with each individual ballot, right? Okay, that's Lisa Dempster just declared in Cartwright, Lanza-Clare. So, but the numbers are at least right now staying somewhat constant. We're looking at 21 PCs. It's either leading or elected. 15 Liberals, 2 NDP, 2 Independents. Still waiting because there are a number of seats, actually 6 or 7 right now in the balance, that could really change these numbers.
Well, let's throw to St. John's and Laura Lydia and John Harris to clue up in St. John's. So over to you, Laura Lydia.
And welcome back to the station here in St. John's, where myself and John Harris are having quite the evening. You know, lots of surprises and lots of, results are coming in. So, we're seeing right now, again, the current results right now is at 21 for PC. Liberals are at 15, NDPs at 2, and Independents at 2. So seems like we've declared a minority, John.
Yeah, so the NTV is declaring a minority government, which means, if anything, we know Tony Wakeham will be the next premier of the province. What's yet to come is whether or not that will be in a majority government. Where it sits, 21 is the number for majority. Liberals are leading, PCs are leading or declared in 21 districts. Which would give them a majority government, but it's too close to make that call at this point.
And there's still 48 polls or 49 polls that are left to count at this moment. So it's still quite the race, seeing that happen right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think, the PCs are having their election watch party in Stephenville. I think it would be great to hear from Tony Wakeham and how he's feeling right now, knowing that he will, if all goes, continues on this trend, will be the premier of the province. I think that when you had the John Hogan Fury switchover, perhaps we didn't see the same amount of people running. A lot of incumbents and a lot of powerhouses of the Liberal Party dropped out this time and did not seek re-election.
Did not come back into the running and retire for whatever reason. So yeah, you're
as our co-host in Grand Falls kicked us off with. There's a long list of ministers that have not decided to put their name forward again. It's very interesting. It's been 10 years of our lives where we've only known a Liberal provincial government. We've had 3 premiers under a Liberal government. We have a federal government which is Liberal since 2015.
Yes.
And I think there was some kind of crisis of identity within the PC party. At some point when it had the Eugene Manning versus Tony Wakeham debate, where Eugene Manning was kind of a little bit further to the conservative side of things rather than the progressive side of things, where they were a little bit more aligned with the Polyever conservatives. But I do think that probably has a role to play as well in this election. We see staff people from the Polyever camp and also have worked on provincial elections in other provinces for Doug Ford, for example, have been working on this campaign. So they have some of the brain power of other conservative movements in the country working on this campaign. They have definitely changed up their digital presence, I've seen, and a lot of their advertisements have been
100%.
A bit more sophisticated. I think their campaign mechanics have been a bit more sophisticated. So in that way, I feel that they're probably using a lot of those different expertise to their advantage, which may explain this result to some way. But I do think that people in general, if you look at the Facebook comments on things, they're fed up. People they're ready to kind of throw down the gloves and see something else. You know, they're fed up with the status quo, and whatever that means. I think that Tony Wakeham surely captured that in this race 100%. In terms of we're done with the status quo, we're done, we need change. And whether or not the PCs are able to do that, they certainly convinced the public that they were the change candidates.
100%. And like you had mentioned, like social media played a big impact on the political campaign. In my opinion, you know, seeing, you know, having more people having their opinions heard and you know, like you said, having the PCs address a lot of those issues as well has been really interesting to see, especially on social media these days.
Yeah, I think people were also skeptical about the MOU. I think there's a big skepticism, especially with any kind of deal with Quebec. But I don't think the Liberals did themselves any favors when during the MOU debate they didn't allow for parties to bring forward their own experts. So what ended up happening is a little bit of a kind of, we're going to bring the people that brought you the MOU to explain what a great deal it is, but these are also the people that were the ones that negotiated it and that did the work on it. So of course they're going to say it's a great deal. So I do think that some kind of unfamiliarity or skepticism of the MOU definitely played in Tony Wakeham's favor.
So many unknowns and so many risks involved, and that was a big thing that you see a lot of people even debate and forecast their vote, you know, the unknowns of the MOU, right?
Which is why I found it strange that Hogan was using the MOU as this, you know, big call for...
That was his call.
Yeah, it was his call for re-election of the Liberal Party. We need to finish the MOU. I wonder how that sits now with a PC minority government, at least, how that will change, if it will go down to a referendum like promised by Tony Wakeham, or if it will have a different type of independent review. Former PC Premier Danny Williams has paid for a campaign against the MOU called Stop the Churchill Giveaway. I'm not sure if our listeners or viewers have seen those big billboards, but perhaps Danny Williams will have the ear of Wakeham when it comes to what will happen with the MOU with Quebec. So we'll see that potentially changing on the Quebec MOU front. I do think that I'd be interested in seeing how Tony Wakeham governs, and will he tackle election finance reform? I think that's a big question for me. Both the NDP and the PCs walked away from the election reform committee because they said it wasn't fair. So those are big questions for me. I think the wind of change is in the air. Will the PCs and federal conservatives be more closely aligned after this win, or will it still kind of stay a little bit down the middle? I think that Tony Wakeham was able to benefit off some of the popularity of Polyever without necessarily taking on maybe the deficits on some of the social issues that may be unpopular in some parts of the province. So it was a very interesting campaign from that front. I think if we look at the NDP, I think there's somewhat of a disappointment that there wasn't a better result. I think we saw Alex Bill of All Newfoundland and Labrador point to their campaign as being one that was very well done.
Absolutely.
I do think that NDP campaign was also punching above its weight. I think it had, coming out of the gate with a platform, a constant platform. I think having a full slate of candidates, whether or not they were active in those districts, but even having those 40 candidates is definitely an important thing that hasn't always happened with the NDP. So they had put out a pretty good campaign. I think Jim Din held himself well in the debates.
Yeah.
But they're probably still content keeping those 2 seats. Obviously losing Labrador West, unfortunately, for Shazia Raza, who was hoping to keep that. And I think that if you look at the seats that they have won, would be the Sheila O'Leary, deputy mayor, and Jim Din kept his seat.
Yeah.
So obviously we see a big change, but the NDP and the independents are pretty stable.
Yeah, for sure.
But yet to see whether or not it will be majority government from the PC side.
Yeah, and it's shaping up to see what the next 4 years of our province is going to look like. So as results continue to roll in, one thing is absolutely clear, that Newfoundland and Labrador voters have spoken, and their message is one that will shape for the next 4 years, of course. So, whether it's change, renewal, or even a call for accountability, tonight's outcome reminds us how passionate that we are as a province. So, thank you, John, for coming in. We've had a ball, looking at the elections and discussing, having great conversations. How did you find it?
I thought it was incredible, Lori Lydia. I think that was a very fun conversation, and it was great being able to have the back and forth with the Corner Brook and Gander and Grand Falls, as well across the province, having this Rogers coverage. So it was great. Thank you for having me. It was an absolute pleasure.
Absolute pleasure on my end too. So thank you so much for joining us for the provincial elections right here in St. John's in the Rogers studio. So we wish all the candidates all the success, and until next time, we'll bring it over back to Gander to Hannah and Brian.
And just like that, we're shaping up, and numbers appear to be sort of leveling off here right now. Thank you to our colleagues in St. John's. And likewise, I don't know if we said Corner Brook and Grand Falls, Windsor, and so on, but it's been a great night bringing you results. Currently, right now, it is shaking down to 2 districts that we're waiting on final numbers for. Those will be Carbonear and Cape Reels Fogo. And I guess factoid for what it's worth, the PCs are leading in both of these, but nobody has been declared.
And within, I think, about 100 votes.
Within 100 votes. And looking at some of the final numbers, I don't know how final they are. When you're dealing, like we've got all polls in, but like less than 20 votes separating, and that's no reason for anybody to declare the final result yet, because of course the process will start from there.
Yeah, so 2 districts we're waiting on: Carbonear, Trinity, Bay de Verte, and Fogo Island, Cape Reels.
And of course, in the Carbonear district, Riley Balsam for the Progressive Conservatives, Kathleen Burt for the NDP, Alison Coffin, one of 2 districts that she is running in as an independent, Edward Cole, non-affiliated, and Danielle Doyle for the Liberals. We're still waiting, and of course, with that many candidates, again, that brings a whole new dynamic to the election. And we are also waiting on
Next page.
Yeah, Cape Reels Fogo.
Yeah.
Or is it on the next?
No, you got it. Right
Where
here.
is it? Oh, there it is, right there. Fogo, Cape Reels. Okay, so we have Dale Lewis for the Liberals, Gary Late, who's an independent, Jim McKenna for the Progressive Conservative Party, and Albert Murphy for the New Democratic Party. So we're just waiting. Right now, the unofficial word that we have is that a PC minority
At the
government
minimum, yeah.
is.
So we know the new premier, there will be a new premier.
Yes.
Regardless of how these last 2 districts land.
Yeah. So, we wait and see, I guess, the final results, but certainly the political landscape has changed. The three-peat, call it curse, the three-peat, again, holds up strong that, change is the constant, and that's where things are
Well,
headed.
and I think the beauty of democracy, right? The fact that, the people get to vote and, change in government can be a really productive thing for everybody.
Looking right now, Carbonated Trinity Bay de Verde, again, I missed the second number there, but it's, okay, Paradise, we said was in.
Yeah, and Lake Melville, which is on the screen now, did come in since we last spoke.
Yep.
And so Russell for the PCs did get that seat confirmed. And for Topsail Paradise, Paul Dinn for the PCs as well has been declared.
Again, we're looking at 100 votes.
Yeah, so now the one we're looking at now is Carbonear, which has not been declared.
No.
So the PCs are leading there by a few hundred votes.
A couple hundred,
And
I
then
think.
Fogo Island, Cape Friels, a pretty close race with
Again,
still
yeah.
a few polling
An
stations to
absolute
report.
drag race in some of those districts. So again, but shaping itself to be a PC minority government. Almost pretty certainly right now, that's going to be the landscape. So
Carbonear is waiting on 5 polls, so not a huge number, but Fogo is waiting on 15. So that is a larger number. So
and it goes hand in hand with elections. It's the results that you want are usually at the last minute, and I've seen them go on for ages and ages.
yeah, I suspect tonight it won't be too late.
No.
But we are at 10:38 and still waiting on 2 districts and a few of those polling stations to confirm. So as we can see on the screen now, Fogo Island, Cape Friels, we're waiting on a bunch of polling stations, but Lake Melville has been declared
That
for
one
the
is
PC.
comfortable.
Yeah, that's been declared. So yeah, what an exciting night in politics for Newfoundland and Labrador.
It is. Some disappointments. I know some that I guess were almost predicted ended up not being.
Well, and
the
definitely I
reality.
think for the Liberal Party, this is going to have to be a wake-up moment to say, what went wrong? How do we move forward as a party, as the opposition party?
Because they did go from holding the balance of power up until the numbers came in. So.
And I'm sure they're holding their breath right now that they could pull out a minority government.
Yeah. And again, a 1-seat change here would make the world of difference in terms of what the whole landscape would be.
So I'm sure a lot of Liberals are on pins and needles tonight watching these final 2 districts come in, hoping that, there's a shift in the wind.
Well, you look at, 2115 versus 2016. That's night and day in terms of what that means to the big picture overall. Then, of course, one of these parties will have to elect or appoint a Speaker of the House. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And again, we are definitely looking at recount territory for a lot of these races.
Lewisport, I believe, was close.
Lewisport was very close.
Yeah.
But again, Sarah Studley with a 500-ish vote lead as an incumbent.
Well, what a night.
And I mean, look here in Placentia Bellevue, 2641, 2577. Right, Sherry Gambin Walsh, again, 600 votes, 600-ish.
I'd be curious to see what the overall voter turnout was for this one.
Yeah,
Sounds like it was more than the
seems to have
COVID
been
election, but
solid and steady, because we did look, at the whole voter fatigue. Had it rained today, it might have been a different story or whatever. But it seemed to have gotten the vote out. I know my phone rang a lot today with reminders.
I didn't get any. No political party called me.
What?
Yeah.
No,
Maybe they knew I was busy
I
this
had
week.
3 or 4 this morning, and I had 5 around supper time.
Wow, that's a lot.
So it's
Yeah, and I think
including one from a candidate that isn't even from here, but I know somehow
They'll
my
find
number
you.
got randomly entered, and so on.
Yeah. Well, we're still waiting. So we're still waiting on 2 districts to report in on their final polls. So we're waiting on Fogo Island, and we are waiting on
You see,
Carbonear.
Tony Wakeham got a solid mandate from his district. Again, Lloyd
Yeah,
Barrett.
so all the three parties, their leaders did get reelected.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's just run the full list right now of who is more than likely in or in. Let's just starting off with Green Bay, White Bay, Lynn Paddock for the Progressive Conservative Party.
Bonavista, we have Craig Party for the PCs.
Burgeo Lapoille, we have Michael King for the Liberals.
And then Buren Grand Bank, we have Paul Pike of the Liberals.
Cape St. Francis retaining, and again we said PC since Confederation, which is quite a legacy.
But apparently a tighter race than maybe it's been in
it's
some.
one of the tighter races there, but as of right now, Jody Wall, Progressive Conservative Party, has taken the seat in Cape St. Francis.
And then Carbonear, we're still waiting to see. The PCs are currently leading, but we're just waiting for that.
Cartwright Lanceclair, Lisa Dempster retains her seat as the incumbent.
And we've
are
been
you
brought
eating, Are you eating
snacks.
cookies?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, pick me up one too, eh?
Which one do you want?
Date
One of those, Nanaimo bar.
No, one of those with the wrappers on it looks
Oh
really
yeah,
good.
these are partridge.
This is what you do when you're waiting.
Brought to you by Kinden's Bakery.
Kinden's Bakery, and there we go. You know.
No, Mark Buckley.
Cartwright Lanceclair, Lisa Dempster for the Liberals, held on to her seat as well.
Conception Bay, East Bell Island, we had Fred Hutton get back in, which I don't think is a huge surprise for the Liberal Party.
And likewise, Barry Petton in Conception Bay South for the PCs.
Corner Brook, the mayor race, we saw Jim Parsons of the Liberal Party pull out ahead.
In Exploits, Pleman Forsey for the PCs held on to his seat.
In Fairyland, we saw Loyola O'Driscoll of the PC Party win.
We are still waiting on the race in Fogo Island, Cape Friels, right?
Yes.
That's Dale Lewis for the Liberals, Gary Late, Independent, Jim McKenna for the PCs, Albert Murphy for the NDP, and we're in no position to make a call on that one.
Yeah, but in Fortune Bay, we saw Elvis Lovelace of the Liberal Party retain his seat.
Right here in Gander, Bettina Ford for the Liberals emerged as the victor.
Grand Falls, Windsor, Buckins, we saw Chris Tibbs in a heated race of the PCs win.
And Pam Parsons, again, no surprise to anybody, solid lead in Harbour Grace, Portagrave. She's been there quite a while and dearly loved out there.
Harbour, Maine, we had Helen Conway Ottenheimer of the PCs pull ahead.
In Humber Bay of Islands, Eddie Joyce, again, the victor. I don't know how many terms he has been there now, but yeah.
And somebody who's seen different parties. So,
He has,
yeah.
First elected, I think, as a Liberal, has been independent for the last two and a bit. So, right there.
Humber, Gross Morn, we have Mike Goosney of the PCs.
That one changed colors. Don't forget our past two premiers, Dwight Ball and Andrew Fury, were from that district. So that was a solid Liberal seat that has now gotten. Of course, Mike Goosney made a run at it, I think, last time as well. But it has changed color, one of the ones that changed this time around, and that is now a blue PC seat.
I got distracted.
Lab West. There you go.
Lab West, we have Joseph Power of the PCs.
Keith Russell in Lake Melville.
And that was one that was close.
That
right
was
till
one of
the
the ones we
end.
were waiting on, but that is now a PC seat.
And Lewisport Twillingate. It was also a very close race.
I'm thinking a dozen votes or something in the final analysis.
Yeah.
But it is Mark Butt, as of right now, over Derek Bennett.
Mount Pearl North, we had Lucy Stoyles of the Liberal Party declared.
Mount Pearl Southlands, Paul Lane, the independent candidate there, hung on to his seat, and that's in Mount Pearl Southlands.
Yeah, and Mount Scio, Sarah Studley held on to her seat for the Liberal Party.
And likewise in Placentia St. Mary's, Sherry Gambon Walsh for the Liberals.
Yeah, and those are a couple well-known Liberals
They're
from the
very well known, have been around for a while, and Now the next one's quite close.
Placentia West Bellevue, Jeff Dwyer of the PCs was declared.
Over Brian Keating, of course, and that was back and forth the whole night. In St. Barb Lansom Meadows, we had Andrea Barber defeating Crystal Lynn Howell. That's a solid upset.
Yes, we heard from Dustin and Kevin earlier from the Corner Brook Rogers studio. Andrea, obviously a well-known figure in the community, but Crystal Lynn Howell, a well-known Liberal. So
and high-ranking cabinet minister and so on.
So some change there.
Some change there as well. In St. George's Humber, it is Hal Cormier for the PCs, and that one is a change of color there as well.
St. John's Centre, Jim Din held onto a seat for the NDP.
And in St. John's East Kitty Vitty, we have Sheila O'Leary for the NDP as well. So that's 2 NDP seats.
That's the riding I first voted in.
Really?
That's where I'm
Okay,
from.
awesome. St. John's West, we have Keith White for the Liberals.
Stephenville, Port-au-Port, we have our new premier who held onto his seat, Tony Wakeham for the PCs.
In Terra Nova, again hanging on to his seat, Lloyd Parrott for the Progressive Conservative Party. Of course, Lloyd's been around politics for a while as well.
Yeah, and then we have Topsail Paradise, not another close race we were watching all night, but we did see Paul Din of the PCs hold on to that seat.
And Torngat Mountains, Leela Evans for the Progressive Conservative. Of course, Leela's been around for a while as well. Representing, she's been an independent and is now a PC. So there you go.
And then we have Virginia Waters Pleasantville. Bernie Davis for the Liberal Party held on to his seat.
And in Waterford Valley, we have Jamie Corab, and a solid lead there for the Liberal Party in Waterford Valley. Congratulations to Jamie.
And Windsor Lake, we have our former Premier John Hogan held onto his seat for the Liberal Party, but looks like won't be Premier come tomorrow.
Yes. Now, how many of these races are going to be close? Is there going to be any fluctuation and change once you get into the counting again, the recounting?
But I think either way, we're going to see a minority government with the PCs.
Well, right now we're looking at a differential of 6 seats, so chances are it won't change.
They won't switch that much.
So, Premier Wakeham, there you are. You're the new premier. Is it minority? Is it majority?
I'm sure he's hoping for a majority, and I'm sure the Liberals are on pins and needles right now, seeing if these last 2 reporting districts will switch it.
But who knows? It's politics, it's numbers, and we go to the last federal election where we in this area we saw a recount totally overthrow a seat.
And it took weeks, so hopefully we don't see that drag on.
These things can go. If you go to a judicial recount, where it's basically examine each ballot and make sure it's exact.
I know I was talking to a few people earlier today that were saying, like, on the ballots, it was just like a blank, like you had to mark your X
somewhere on the line,
somewhere in the space, but it's not like there wasn't like a circle that you put. I wonder if I wonder how many ballots are spoiled or how many they have to revisit.
And again, the one that went through tonight, is that spoiled when you go to a recount? So many factors at play in this, and it's not just it's it looks like they voted for that person, but did you vote for that person totally by the rules? And the rules are just that.
And interesting that the popular vote is so close. So the popular vote, I think, is about 44% for the PCs and about 43% for the Liberals. So you can see it was a close election, percentage-wise. Of course, when you turn that into seats, it's not so close. The PC's pulling out 6 seats ahead, but interesting that, the popular vote was that close. Lots of important issues on the table this election cycle, and the people, voted for change.
They voted for change, and, it could be from a wide variety of things. Times have changed since the Liberals got elected, back 2 elections ago, 3 elections ago. Times have gotten tougher. We all know that. The dollar doesn't go near where it used to go. But now we have this huge document on the table. Where does it go from here? Does it go to that independent arm's length group to examine it? Does the whole process change? Does the negotiations with Quebec take change? Because it was negotiated and signed by one Liberal premier, and then that was handed off to another Liberal premier. Now we have PC premier.
And the PCs were calling for an independent review on that.
They were calling for an independent review.
Yeah, so we'll see how they navigate the next steps of this.
With another former PC premier being very vocal over the need to do things in a different way.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot of factors at play, but clearly you listen to the voice of the people, and the voice of the people has spoken that these are the issues that they want looked at.
Well, and I think like John Harris was saying earlier, the Liberals really put their eggs all in the MOU Churchill Falls basket.
They did.
That was clear, that was their all their speaking points kind of came back to that when it was looked at, like, where will the money come from for healthcare, for new jobs, for, education. It was always, well, this is the plan. The PCs made a lot of promises too, but didn't put all their eggs in the MOU basket, obviously.
But at the same time, you inherit the same set of books that were there today, and those books have a lot of red ink in it. And to do things, you have to pay for things.
Where does the money come from?
Where does the money come from? Yeah. It's that simple. You can't buy what you don't have the money to buy.
Yeah, well, and we're a province that, has a lot of experience with this huge amount of debt.
And right now we have probably our hugest, the most huge.
Weren't
debt.
you an English teacher, Brian?
Yeah,
Is there a synonym for that?
The red ink is probably at its highest number ever. So, you got to factor that in amongst all of it. And
Carboneer,
yeah.
declared PC.
Okay, so that's now declared. So those are looking pretty much like the final numbers right there now. So
well, this one seat, as you can see on the screen, we're back to Carboneer, but yeah, so in the end, it wasn't as close as it was earlier. Once all the polling stations are coming in.
400 and change, but a good race.
But Fogo Island, we're still waiting on, and as you can see, really close, with still 10 polling stations due to report in. So that one is still a nail biter, that's for sure.
Well, you're looking at 80 votes.
And that could still change it from being a majority to a minority.
Yeah. So you're looking at how many polls? Is that 10 polls to come
Yeah,
in?
it's 10.
So a lot could change.
A lot. Yeah, I mean.
And again, just look at those two numbers on the left. 2115 versus 2016 are night and day different.
Oh, and the numbers just updated there with a couple more polling stations. So,
okay, so we're
getting
still
a little
waiting on
further
8.
apart, though.
But there's, especially now, like if the numbers were different than that, this would be a whole different one to look at it.
Yeah.
But this could change. I mean, 8 polls is a lot.
So it all comes down to Fogo Island, Cape
Comes
Frios.
down to Fogo Island. You go, guys, because.
How many people live on Fogo Island? Do you know?
I'm not sure. At least 3,000. Let's add them up. Yeah, 4,000, 4,500-ish people. At least votes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, it's amazing what hangs in the balance of this.
Well, and just goes to show, I think, if you from John Hogan's perspective and Tony Wakeham, every district counts.
Every district
counts. It's a big province geographically, so I'm sure it was tough for the for the leaders of the parties to get out to all areas. And I know, in the last few days, John Hogan was focusing on the Avalon and
2,100 people in 2021 on Fogo, in that on Fogo.
So Cape Frios must have that again, yeah.
Yeah.
So probably high voter turnout then. Look, if those are the numbers.
Yes.
In that district. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see the overall provincial voter turnout. Clearly some big issues. It actually is looking like people were really engaged this election cycle.
And along that engagement, I mean, we had 8 candidates running independent. We had a couple running non-affiliated. We had, I think, the Liberals, NDP, and the PCs running candidates in every district, all 40. You know? I think it's the first time ever that the NDP had somebody in every district.
Yeah, and some of them obviously weren't as engaged as others. Yeah.
So, looking at these numbers, not a lot has changed. So what do you think?
I think it's going to be a PC majority.
I think we can safely, at least for
safely,
now,
but
and we're not staying around for a week till the recounts are done.
No. But based on how these, polling stations are coming in, that number is not getting smaller.
And they appear constant. So with that, we are going to declare that your next government under
Tony Wakeham.
Premier-elect Tony Wakeham is a PC minority government. Lots of
Majority.
things to happen.
It's a majority.
What?
It's a majority.
It would be a majority?
It would be a majority.
It would be a majority. So, yeah, it would be a majority government, 21 seats. So congratulations to the Progressive Conservative government of Newfoundland and Labrador under our new Premier Tony Wakeham, and looking forward to seeing all sorts of great things as we move forward.
And what an exciting night covering politics in Newfoundland and Labrador. Huge thank you to everyone who participated. We had live coverage from Corner Brook, from Grand Falls, Windsor, and of course from St. John's. So huge, we had great insights from across the province as we watched these election results come in.
Certainly been a fun night. But until next time, for all of us here at Rogers TV Gander and Rogers TV Newfoundland, I'm Brian Mosier.
And I'm Hannah DeYoung. We'll see you soon.
Talk soon.
Can I eat my cookie now?
Got a little mile high flight attention. It's Mardi Gras up in the clouds. I'm up so high, they never come down. I'll try anything to drown out the pain. They all know why I'm getting drunk on a plane. This date marked on the calendar forever. We take that new red limo airport ride together. I feel like a plastic groom alone there at the top of the cake. So hey, I'm getting drunk on a plane. Buying drinks for everybody but the pilot. It's a party. Got the 737 rocking like a G6. Stewardess is something sexy, leaning, pouring coke and whiskey. Told her about my condition. Got a little mile high flight attention. It's Mardi Gras.
you.